We are back, everybody, to the Play versus Solo Fall event featuring Fortnite. I'm your host, Life with Panda. Joining me today is Mini Miner. What's going up, Miner?
What is going on, Panda? Solos competition today. So much excitement for me right now, and I'm sure for you as well. It's going to be so much fun to see all of these upcoming players, as well as maybe some veteran names that we've seen in the Play versus scene as well. It's going to be some very exciting action today, and I can't wait to watch it.
It is. It's going to be a lot of fun for all these games we get to watch. And you may be wondering, guess what? This is the finals. Well, wait, how did we get to the finals? Well, we got you covered. We're going to dive into the schedule and what it looked like, because there were actually 2 open qualifiers that players could have utilized to make it through. Then they make it on to the semifinals. Then from the semifinals that happened on October 6th, they make it to today, which is the finals for the East Region qualifiers. So this is huge. This is the final moment for these players that have qualified through. We got all solo action ready, locked and loaded for you all today. It's going to be pretty impressive. We have some incredible names, which we'll dive into in a little bit, but it's going to be exciting. I'm so excited, but what I'm most excited about is the prizing that is available for these players to grab. I mean, first place being $1,850 cash. That is a huge first place prize.
Yeah, it really is. $1,850 for first place, but it goes all the way down to 50th as well. So half of these players will be walking away with some cash today, which is very, very exciting indeed, it's a really good thing. I mean, everyone, a lot of people do walk away with cash right now, so it's going to be a great tournament. Everyone's going to be playing their best and trying to get all the way up to that $1,850 prize.
I mean, that's the goal, right? You got to make it up to the top, but you may be wondering, How is this possible? How do I earn my cash if I'm here as one of these solo players in these finals? Well, sweat not. We got the scoring format right here for you, and we're going to break it all down, starting with the eliminations. Eliminations are 2 points for eliminations, which means it might be a little bit heavier on the elimination side, but don't worry. That Victory Royale is worth a sweet 30 points. So you would still need, as a solo player, 15 eliminations to match the value of that Victory Royale. So keep that in mind when you're going into these games today, because a balance between the two is going to be super important.
Yeah, it really is. As you mentioned, the elimination points are a little bit more than we would usually see. Usually you'd see 1 in this sort of format, which could be very exciting for us and you watching at home, because we could be seeing some very high elimination games today. Of course, balancing out with that placement as well. So maybe we'll see teams go, or the players going for a little bit more higher elimination games, maybe towards the latter stage of the competition, because maybe they need to clutch up. Maybe they need a 15 elimination win to secure themselves into the money, or even into that top 10. So it's going to be very exciting. That scoring format it's going to make things very interesting.
Yeah, I actually like that it has a really solid balance between the two, because when you're a solo player, right, it's not easy to get eliminations, especially when you're going up against 100 players. Obviously, in duos, trios, it's a little bit different, right? You're going up against teams, not just other individuals. So when you have more people hunting you down, it's definitely harder to get those eliminations. But without further ado, let's see who's doing the hunting today in these games. It is our players making it to the finals. And looking at this, there are quite a few great names like Don's World and so many more.
Yeah, there really are. Of course, we have some OG names here that have played in Play versus tournaments before. Brandon Chill coming out on top in the previous one, getting that first place prize. So another name that we've seen plenty of times here at the Play versus finals format. But as of course we can see, there may be some names on here that we haven't seen before. Maybe this is these guys' first Play versus finals, or maybe it is even their first finals format tournament as well. We're seeing some big names like Shadow, of course, there as well. Fallen, another player we've seen a lot as well. We're seeing the Con Man, of course, as well. Falcon, Poi as well. So many great names, and I'm sure these guys are going to put on a great show today.
Yeah, these guys are definitely ready and raring to go, because you got names like Jivy here who have a competitive track record that is next to none. Some of the most consistent placements, making it through to different rounds here in all competitive events. So it's exciting to see players like this competing here today, because this is it. This is the best of the best making it to these final moments. This solo lobby is going to be one of the most stacked lobbies we watch all season. So I'm excited to dive into that action. But before we do, we got to talk a little bit about what's going on here in Season 8, and more specifically, what's going on in the map. If you don't know, the map has changed quite a bit here in the season. We got to break it down for you, starting with the crash sites. These areas across the map are essentially buffs to the existing areas, whether it's the Cami split or up here near Coral. I mean, it is huge shifts and advantages. At each of these locations combined, there's roughly about an additional 150 chest spawns across the map. That is just insane to think about the increase in loot possibilities there. And that's not even including the increased floor spawn in these locations as well. So if you're landing places like Coral Castle, Believer Beach, you definitely now have a buffed POI. So make sure you're incorporating that stuff in. But Miniminer, what are some things that you kind of want to point out here on the map?
Yeah, well, you mentioned there some of the big, obvious changes to Season 8, but I want to touch on something that's a little bit smaller. Of course, in Season 8, we do get some tiny little IO guard bases. We see one just to the east of Pleasant Park right here, one just to the sort of east of Holly Hedges as well. So these are tiny little IO guard bases that maybe these solo players will utilize to go and get their loot. Of course, they're very, very small. They're very unlikely to be contested, but they're new into Season 8, of course, and they do have plenty of those slurp barrels there as well. So maybe the potential to not have to waste your heals off spawn and to get some great loot as a solo. Remember, this is solo's format, so landing in a big POI might not quite be as good of an idea as it might be for something like trios, so maybe we'll see a lot of those being used today.
Yeah, I'm excited, right? I'm excited to see how these games completely unfold, right? But looking at all of this, there's a lot of great talking points here for today. But on top of that, we got one for tomorrow, because if you don't know, this is not all the action you're getting this week. Tomorrow, we actually have collegiate. We have college level gameplay, and it's trios. So it's the trios final for college players competing tomorrow. So you're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be myself, Life with Panda, and Miniminer breaking it all down for you for tomorrow as well. But let's focus on the solos, because I know I'm hyped. I know Miniminer's hyped, but I think we need to get you at home equally as hyped as we are. Listen, if that trailer doesn't get you hyped, I don't know what else will. That's all I'm saying. But it's about time for game number one. But before we can dive into the game and jump on that battle bus, we got to talk about it. The famous question I always like to ask Miniminer over here. High ground, low ground. Who do you think is going to take game number one?
Yep, the classic question, high ground or low ground. And every single time, I always have to think in my head. I have to prepare beforehand, you know, what am I going to answer? Because he's going to ask the question. I already know. Is it going to be high ground? Is it going to be low ground? Game number one, though, of course, going into this event today, it's going to be interesting. Are people going to be going for a bit more risky plays, going up to that high ground? Or are people going to be going a little bit more cautious, a little bit more calm, staying on the low ground? Personally, I think a lot of people are going to go for those high elimination victory royales. So I think they'll have the mats to be able to go up to high ground. So for me, I think high ground. What about you?
You know what? I'm gonna steer a little bit of a different direction than you here. I think low ground is gonna take game number one. I just have a feeling with what's been going on in recent days that this low ground action could be potentially walking away with the dub here in the game number one. But battle bus is loading up. It's getting ready to go here in just a few moments, and without a doubt, I'm excited. These solo players have competed through qualifiers, semifinals, now making it to today here with the finals. So it is definitely going to be the top of the top, the best of the best who have competed here. So I'm pumped. I know you're pumped, Miniminer. And look, here it is. It's about time for game number one. I'm getting word that the last passengers are loading onto the battle bus as we speak. So we are just moments away from diving into this game. And I am just, I am excited. This is going to be incredibly talented players going up against one another. And I'm kind of interested. You know what? Let's go ahead and dive in. I'm interested to see where we're going to be watching first here because there are, again, like we talked about, lots of POI changes, lots of area changes here on the map. So it's going to be interesting to see where we spectate first here for the day. And naturally, it is going to be it is Dirty Docks in Pleasant Park, or actually Stealthy Stronghold. It looks like Abe is going to go for. So Going to be interesting. The spread here on this map though is quite nice. Does look like there's going to be quite a few players heading towards that southwest region, but nevertheless, it's going to be a pretty interesting rotation here, especially for a player like Aoxy, who it does look like has other players in the vicinity. So this could not be, or this could be a bit of a struggle here for him early on.
Yeah, it really could. Of course, getting contested first game is not ideal. I'm sure maybe he might be quite happy with that, might be able to pick up an early elimination if he's confident here. But, of course, getting that Storm Surge as well is very important. So maybe he'll be happy, maybe he won't. He might be the target for other players, though, of course. But we're talking about Dash right now as he's gliding on in. It looks as though he's used the launchpad, the static launchpad that is at the IO base, that is at Stealthy Stronghold at the northern side of the map. Getting some great AR shots right there. The Burst Assault Rifle, a very, very solid weapon to use, especially off spawn when a lot of the players do not have too much HP in them in their inventories and in their heals, of course, as well. We're seeing Dash now farming his way up. Looks as though he's contested by 2 other players as well. So interestingly enough, we have 2 players alongside him right now, as well as 3 at Dirty Docks as well. So these 2 POIs have been contested by the same number of players right off the bat.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing here about solos. That's one thing I want to point out, because in solos, it's much easier to land at this spot with multiple players and still have a good outcome to your game, right? When you don't have as many players, or when you have team modes, I should say, and you have more players landing in a particular vicinity, it is way tougher to utilize that POI to your advantage. But here in solos, a little bit easier to split with other players. Now, obviously, you may still end up getting an engagement or 2, but it's going to be a lot easier to manage as a solo player than it would like a 3v3 with trios or 2v2 and duos. So ultimately, for players like, is that Munir? Well, Munir is hanging out there in Misty Meadows, and there's quite a few players close by.
Yeah, there is. It looks as there's a bit of a battle sort of brewing in the Stealthy Stronghold area as well. Of course, it's going to be very, very careful Springs right here, because you might not know, but there is another player that is just outside of Stealthy Stronghold. Looks as though they have rotated away now, so there is just the 3 of these guys inside. Actually, I think it's just the one, actually. It's him against Abe right now inside of the Stealthy Stronghold area. Really good benefit of this POI is, of course, you do get plenty of mats to farm up, particularly those trees as well. They can act as good cover, and of course, you get the material from those trees as well. So plenty of wood opportunities here as well, plenty of brick as well with the more built-up area in the middle. Now we're hopping back over to the Misty Meadows, quite often a contested area, especially in solos. Obviously, you have 2 sides to Misty, so a lot of teams or a lot of players will land either side to make sure that they're not going to get too contested off spawn and end up in a battle like this. As Palestine right here gets 2 great shots off with the green lever shotgun, getting himself healed up as well so he can get back on front foot, back on the attacking front right now, trying to get a few more shots on Uzi right here. Can he get a finishing shot? And he does. He finishes it up with a fantastic spray right there with the assault rifle, combining the 2, as we see so often. A great elimination right there off spawn.
Yeah, that was a really solid start there to the game for them. And another solid start here for Sun. Sun looks like he has every advantage in the book there. But oh no, as I say that, takes a big chunk of damage here from this other player. He's going to have to be careful if he wants to continue to survive. This is those crucial moments there in the beginning of an engagement that matter most. This player down below gets a lot of tags on you. You have to back off and you have to keep focusing up. Fortunately, this little back off here for Sun has actually resulted in a bit of an upgrade there in the shotgun department. So DeMarco's or lack of aggression here could end up costing him this fight.
Yeah, it could. I mean, he's getting in a bit of a sticky situation right now. The Sun, of course, they're both fighting inside the sort of southern side of the map, so shouldn't be too much of a risk of third parties. They both seem to have a good amount of materials as well, as Sun tries to use the angles as well as he can, trying to find that right-hand peak. Of course, trying to get a nice shotgun shot on the opposing player right now, trying to get on that high ground as well, which is oh so important, especially when the other players might not quite have enough materials. He is continuing to try and farm up as much as possible, and yet it's DeMarco down below. We're seeing it from the opposite angle right now, trying to make sure that he can use those builds effectively and wisely. They both have the exact same shotgun in their inventory as well, so it's going to be a bit of a fair fight here. Looks as though they are both shielded. Sun looks as though he has got a little bit more shield, of course, than DeMarco, so DeMarco has to be a little bit more careful with how he approaches this fight. Sun appears to be on the front foot. Of course, the storm is looming. It's starting to come in as well, so maybe they'll be thinking, okay, this is game one. Maybe I want to rotate out, or maybe they do want to take this fight and try and take this engagement before and get it out of the way before the zoners, of course, come in. This is going to be a very important elimination off the bat, off spawn for both of these players. One of them can clutch it up, or will they decide to disengage? I'm not sure what I'd do in this situation. What about you, Panda?
Yeah, this is tough. I personally think this is a difficult decision. You started an engagement. You had some advantages. You weren't able to clean it up quickly. I think at this point, you just kind of have to mutually rotate. But in solos, it's tough to tell if this other player that you're going up against will even allow you to. So for Sun, for example, right? Sun wants to probably rotate. However, if he starts to rotate, gets a little bit of distance there, and all of a sudden this player decides to sneak up behind and get some tags and ultimately result in an elimination there on Sun, it's not worth it, right? You have to be careful of this. And Sun says, you know what? I can't wait any longer. Just drops then there on DeMarco. DeMarco now trying to get around. Sun still holding height here pretty well. Looks like DeMarco is decent on mass. Not necessarily in the best position, but 20 material is still a lot to work with here in the early game. And he's still just going to hang out in this house. Honestly, at this point, the storm is here. And I think for Sun, it's kind of make or break. It's kind of, you know what? This may be the way to go. But for DeMarco's got the launch pad. He has the med kit. So with the combination of these two things, DeMarco is set up for success. Now, obviously, Sun is not set up in the same way because Sun does not have the additional heals or the launch pad to use when it comes to trying to get the zone later on.
Yeah, he really doesn't. You mentioned the medkit right there, of course. That really gives DeMarco the upper hand in this fight. Of course, he knows that he does have the heal potential. He does have the heal condition to make sure that he can get the heals off, but he doesn't need it. He really doesn't. That was a fantastic shot from DeMarco as the other player goes up. It was Sun going up all the way up onto high ground. A little bit of a laughing up emote right there as well. You love to see it, but now he's upgraded. He's got another set of materials. He's got another med kit as well, so he's going to be happy now. He's got that early elimination. He's got the refresh with a great 161 headshot from him.
See, that's exactly what you wanted to see. A quick cleanup of an elimination, and then the game can continue for these players. If you're DeMarco, right, you're probably pretty upset that you were held in the house for as long as you are against Sun. But it must be pretty satisfying being able to say, you know what? I got the elimination. I don't have to worry about it, right? But as far as good early game starts here, it looks like Bludge has one of the best positioning spots here on the map. If you don't know, with these new crash sites, there are several different areas with these ship debris parts that are stacking up right around where the slipstreams are, and you can find yourself on top of these, get yourself secure, and it's definitely one of the top elevation points here for visuals. So you have a good understanding of what's going on around you. You can get those tags as people rotate and so on. So it's definitely worth trying to take one of these spots, and that's why you see quite a few people here. It looks like stacked up. You got Consolbot here. You have Poobot there. You have this player just right outside in Aoxy. I mean, everybody understands that this is going to be the area to be at, and that's why they find themselves here close by. But looking above, it looks like it's pretty risky to start opening up that cone.
Yeah, it does. Of course, he's not quite on the high ground as Consolbot right now. Of course, you mentioned it earlier about how important these corrupted areas can be, the sort of ship debris that you mentioned. Of course, it can't be broken down. So, you know, this could be a really, really good position to set yourself up for high ground early on in this game. Of course, here we go, though. It's CJR on the back foot right now. Only 23 HP to his name. We're hopping back on over towards the Pleasant Park area right now. He can heal all the way up to 150 HP, or will he not be able to? I don't think he's going to get the chance. You know, there's the other player trying to spray his way in. Looks as though he's got a purple or gold pump shotgun as well as an upgraded assault rifle as well, so plenty of loot for 8-8 on height. I believe that is on the other end of this engagement right now, trying to make his way through this battle right now. CGL maybe could be getting third party in a sec as well, so he has to make sure he gets those heals off, but also sort of suppress the pressure that's coming through with these shots. I think this other player knows, yeah, it's 8-8 on height, taking him out with a solid pump shot right there. Really, really well done from him. That's his second elimination of the game as well. Maybe that's why we could be seeing him with some fantastic loot here early on into this endgame.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the setup that I would personally want going into one of these later rounds, because these are two heavy power weapons in the inventory. You have the epic pump shotgun, which is like a person and a half, to be honest. And then you have the epic variant of the assault rifle, which if you have good assault rifle aim, it's pretty much a beam. So you definitely want to have these in the inventory for that close range and long range engagements that you ultimately will need to take, because that's what this boils down to. Whether it's getting Storm Surge tags in the mid and late game, or starting to rotate and box fight here with that shotgun out, you got everything covered in that loadout. But speaking of people that aren't necessarily as covered, it's Brandon, and it's not looking too great for him. Does have a decent shotgun, but the assault rifle still of the common variety. So it's going to be a bit risky there to take an engagement with that. But Brandon says, you know what, I'm not sure. I don't care. EXO, you're going down. I'm going to make sure you go down. But with Storm Surge now active, that could play a huge factor as to why this engagement is even taking place.
Yeah, it looks as though Storm Surge could be playing a part in the reasoning as to why this engagement is taking place right now. It looks as though Brandon is definitely trying to be a bit more aggressive in this fight, so maybe he is just above, yeah, he's just above 23 above Storm Surge. So this is a really, really good fight for Brandon to take. Of course, he does have the blue pump shotgun, so he can land a really good 100 body shot damage. So if he can land one of those, that's going to be so crucial in getting that Storm Surge, of course, maybe even leading to an elimination as well. So this is so crucial for him right now if he can take this fight and win it effectively. Now we're seeing this player right now on the back foot. There's another player attacking inside the Bony Burbs area. He has decent loot, but not a very easy place to fight. It is quite difficult to build in this sort of area. As you can see, a lot of the building making it a little bit more awkward to place those standard building pieces. He does try to get that big bot off, does manage to do so as well. And now he's on the front foot. Now he gets a great one. Great AR shot right there on the other player. This is a really drawn-out fight, but he's trying to close out the engagement as quickly as possible. He's 270, he's above the Storm Surge as well, so this is an important elimination, but he's not going to get it. No, he is not. That was a great elimination. It's Nada right there, coming through with the clutch and coming through with the elimination. That sorts him out for Storm Surge. His loot is looking good going into this endgame, as well as his material count. That's a great fight to take.
That is the perfect refresh in a situation like that. I'm kind of interested, though. What is the idea or the thought process there in dropping the harpoon? Because the value in that bad boy in the late game is just superb. There's so many use cases for the harpoon, especially in solos. But, you know, everybody has their decisions or their preferences. So we'll see what that looks like. But for Blair's going to have to make something happen, because Storm Surge is fully active and just ticking away at the desperate heals that Blair has in the inventory. So they're going to have to make something happen. They're going to have to take some shots on anybody that is beginning to rotate here in the vicinity. And looking around here, I'm not seeing anybody too close. So for Blair probably is just going to continue to try to heal it out. But no, you see them actually just begin to expand, and not necessarily expand, in my opinion, in the right direction. You should be trying to go towards some of these players here who are close by, so you can get that surge up, because you're only 3 damage below.
Yeah, he really is only 3 damage below, but of course there is only one player that needs to get eliminated to sort of eliminate the Storm Surge in the game, and that is, of course, Nublar right now. So a lot of these players won't be peeking, they won't be looking for Storm Surge tags, so they don't necessarily need it. Will he get the medkit off? No, he won't. No. And that's Reflex right there coming in with that elimination in the end. He can't quite get that medkit off, ran out of heals, but just wasn't proactive enough early on enough to get those eliminations, get those Storm Surge tags that he so desperately needed, and ultimately was what caused him to get eliminated there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit risky, right? When you know you have the surge taken away at you, and you know you have a decent loadout, at that point you just gotta push somebody. You were only like 3 to maybe even 10 damage below the threshold. At that point, you just gotta get in there. You just gotta get involved. And for players like Reflex now doesn't have to worry about it, because New Blair didn't take advantage of it. Didn't take those few desperate shots that they would have needed to remain in this game. So fortunately for these other players, now they're getting to play this out without Surge being a factor. But for Blair, they're going to have to change that up in the rest of these games, because don't worry, there are 6 matches being played today. So 5 more opportunities for Blair to make something happen here in these games. But going into this, it is Bob Boy Keith, the new trend here with names being Bob Boy. And it looks like Keith is going to set him up right there into Holly Hedges.
Yeah, really nice little area to box up and set yourself up. Of course, you do get the potential to refarm a lot of those buildings and areas around the Holly Hedges area. A lot of those buildings are made out of wood, so not those hard materials that a lot of these players will be looking for in the end game. As you mentioned earlier, getting a harpoon could be so crucial in getting those refreshes and not needing to go for that refarm play. But looks like Keith right here is looking pretty chill right now. He's got a decent amount of materials, probably looking for a little bit of a refresh, maybe getting himself up on that Storm Surge, of course, as well. He does have one elimination, so he might be okay, but the loot's looking pretty good. Maybe the ammo could be improved slightly, but I don't think he really needs to do too much right now. He's going to wait another couple of seconds to see where the Storm is going to take them next, and looks as though it's more towards the western side of Holly, so he should have a free rotate all the way through Holly Hedges right here, unless he opts for a little bit more of a risky route to try and maybe pick up an elimination on the way, or maybe see if he can get some extra loot that could bolster his inventory even more. Of course, he does have that launch pad in use as well, so that is a really, really great device to use, especially in solos, of course, because not a lot of people will have them, because it's obviously less players or less teams or more teams, sorry, that are competing, so they're more fighting for the loot. There's less of those sort of POIs that are contested. So we're going to be seeing what's going to be happening right here with Hallow, who does seem to have that SMG and purple pump loadout. We talked about it before, about how this is sort of taking over and how interesting this is as a loadout right here.
Yeah, it definitely is the start of something new. We've seen it a lot with major pro players like Scented rocking this in solo scrims for the season. So I'm interested to see how it actually plays out in these competitive events. I think there's a lot of potential for it. It's just not something we've seen be standard. So I'm excited to see how it actually plays out in this game with that player rocking that purple SMG. But that's what it's going to come down to, is how these players utilize these power weapons in the game, because that epic submachine gun is valuable. We've seen it time and time again, where if you're box fighting or you're in that close range vicinity and you want to use that as a, I guess, engagement starter, it definitely provides and puts down quite a bit of damage. So hopefully this player will know how to use it. But going at the other spectrum of this, it's the tried and true, the shotgun and assault rifle combination here for Shep, but Shep looks to be struggling on ammo.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, this is a very, very interesting loadout. We've talked about some of the more strong loadouts just then, but look at this. He's got the common assault rifle, the common pistol, taking it into endgame as well, but I think he still has that because he's lacking on that medium ammo as well. So Shep right here is going to definitely have to look for something. He's not only below the Storm Surge, but of course he is a little bit low on the heals. He's a little bit low on the materials, so we'll definitely want a bit more of a refresh on that. But his loot, his ammo, his situation in that department is not looking too good either. So he's going to use his last mini right here to heal his way back up, so there's no way he's going to be able to out-heal the Storm Surge. Only 25 bullets left inside of that common pistol as well, 7 left in the assault rifle, so this is a really, really sort of now or never situation for him right now, as he finds a great little refresh. That is almost a gift from one of the other players right there. They wrapped it up nicely for him.
Yeah, they definitely did, and that's exactly what he needed. He went from 7 assault rifle ammo to 300 plus. So that's going to be a huge advantage, just kind of chilling there out in the open. But Shep now needs to make something happen. Storm Surge picking away at him. And actually, as I say that, though, Storm Surge no longer active. Looks like 88 on height is helping with that, getting a quick elimination there. But for players like Shep, they're not going to have to worry too much because Storm Surge is no longer a factor.
Yeah, that's a really, really refreshing and relieving sight, I'm sure, for Shep right now. This is where he needs to be a little bit more proactive than before, though, of course. He needs to be looking for these tags because he knows that he's on the lower end. He's on the latter stages of those of the threshold, so he really needs to make sure that he's using this time now of a little bit of respite from that Storm Surge attack, the awkwardness that the Storm Surge can cause sometimes. Now he needs to try and use that to maybe get some more loot and use some of those assault rifle bullets that he just found on the floor. Now we're seeing Bludge right here getting towards the front side of the zone, just getting inside as well, which is really, really good. A lot of the less congested area of zone as well. Does have the uses of a launch pad as well as another one of those purple pump shotguns, the epic rarity. It's such a power weapon. We've seen so many players utilize that very effectively, and I'm sure we'll be seeing some big plays from him right now, as we're seeing a lot of the players sort of battling it out for height. They're all sort of up on that high ground area. It looks as though low ground is a little bit less congested and contested right now by these players. players. So we're seeing someone up on height right there. Is that Babsa with literally about 1 HP? So I wonder how long he's going to be able to hold that position for. Surrounding him is Bash, of course. We have Shadow, we have Breewi, as well as Dawn. Another big name on the scene, of course. They're all sort of positioning themselves up on height, and here he is. Yeah, 1 HP to his name. Of course, no white heals either, so this is not the best situation. He cannot take 1 tick of Storm, and this is going to be a bit of a dilemma for him now. Does he launch pad and risk getting beamed out of the air, or does he maybe make a little bit more of a safe rotate down below?
That's going to be the question. Is it going to be more than enough to kind of continue to survive here in this game, or will they have to find more? You know what I mean? Like, it truly is a balancing act here, but for 88 on height, doesn't have to balance too much. 927 damage above the threshold, 7 eliminations on the board. I mean, that's 14 points in itself right there. So definitely a great start here for 88, but now it's time to rotate. It does look like he is going to have a bit of a pull here for this zone and having to use a ton of material here, but no, taking actually a lot of damage. Going to have to stop and heal up. And I think it's about time you use that launch pad if you want to continue to survive here. And no, he says, you know what? I'm just going to keep using all my mats, but no, there it is. The pad is out. 18 HP in the dream. 1 shot in the air will take him out, and he actually makes it. He makes it into zone.
That is unbelievable. It almost seems as though he couldn't place the launch pad down because the tree was in the way. Of course, that's definitely a factor that he would have identified right there and used the launch pad a little bit further away, as now we're seeing Hallow all the way up on a height, looking down at everyone else, looking at the ammo is not too good for him right now. This is the only downside to this loadout, but no, he picks up a great elimination right there on 88 on height, a play we were just looking at as well. Now he gets that all-important refresh. He doesn't quite get enough of those light bullets, though, to reload that purple SMG. Of course, this is the only issue with this loadout right now. You lose that range. So especially if you're on high ground, you do lose the range to be able to get some eliminations down on low ground. But again, it's a really, really great weapon for pressure as he tries to make his way towards the front side of the zone right now. And he does pick up the harpoon, of course, as well. So a real great opportunity for a refresh. You can find one. You see Shadow right there going down in the elimination feed to the Storm, and DMark going for a little bit of a medkit play right here.
Yeah, and look, it's kind of questionable going for the medkit play. In my opinion, I've been watching a lot of competitive VOD reviews here recently, trying to understand when's the best time to take that medkit, but saving that just for a little bit longer can provide so much more of an advantage. But speaking of advantages, it's high ground. We talked about it moments ago. Bacon now controlling the high ground, but not without taking a little bit of pressure from down below. Remember, this is the 8th zone. This is still a little bit of game left here. And for Bacon, only 19 builds remaining. It might be tough for him to maintain the high ground, especially with so many great players like it's Jerry and Fan and Big Boy Clouded just down below.
Yeah, Big Boy Clouded right there, getting a great elimination with that legendary pump shotgun. That was really, really good from him. Bacon, though, maintaining the high ground with limited materials. You can see in the top right of the screen, only 6 builds to his name. As we see Clouded right here, just on the lower end of the spectrum. We can see him getting a really, really good little refresh right there just before he has 2 eliminations to his name. But no, he's run out of materials, gets cracked all the way down on low ground, has to try and jump in, but no. It's Minia right here getting the elimination right now, who does have materials, but no longer has his life. We see BBG Salado right there coming out with that clutch elimination. Bacon, though, still on high ground. Is he going to close out this match? This is unbelievable.
Yeah, that looks to be the question. It looks like it's Bacon here tanking a little bit of Storm. A questionable play here, but doesn't have the material to just completely jump down. And there it is. The nice 43 tag off onto Tree. And that is it. What a game there for Bacon. Despite the limited material, still being able to walk away with the VR from the high ground. I mean, just overall impressive stuff.
Yeah, very, very impressive indeed. As we mentioned before, taking the high ground a little bit later is such an important aspect of particularly Solo's gameplay, but he used that very, very well. And what I was impressed with is he utilized the lack of materials very well, of course, as well. What we see a lot of players do is overbuilding, making too many tarps as it is in that high ground position, but he utilized the low materials, that sticky situation that he was in right there, and he used it to his advantage, which is great for him, clutching up that elimination without any refreshes right there at the end. So really, really great elimination, really, really great victory royale, and drop down just at the perfect moment to close out the game. What a win.
What a win. I mean, look, even Manir here for a moment looked like he was set up for success. getting some really nice tags, but then there it is, that final moment once again. 2 eliminations, victory royale. Will it be enough though? That's the question we need to answer, because we saw players there with 7+ eliminations, which are some big points, right? So to think about that, the elimination points being 2 per elimination, that could carry for some of the placement that some of these players weren't able to get. But we won't know until we take a quick break, which we're going to do right now. So make sure to stay tuned, and we'll be right back with those leaderboards. Welcome back, everybody, to the Play versus Finals here, solos event for high school featuring Fortnite. I'm your host, Life with Panda, Mini Miner here, right next to me, breaking it all down. And game number 1 is complete. 5 more games remain here, though, so still so many opportunities. But it's almost time to dive into that leaderboard. Before we do we think, Mini Miner, that victory royale was enough to take that top spot, or do you think one of those players with elimination was able to take it?
As you mentioned, there's a lot of people with eliminations, of course, in that game. We saw in the sort of the scoring format earlier on that eliminations are very points heavy in this particular format. So very exciting stuff. We're going to be seeing who's going to be coming out on top with that. Is it going to be eliminations or is it going to be placement? Let's find out right now.
And there it is. Bacon with the victory royale and 2 eliminations is going to be able to hold number 1. In second place is actually going to be Tree. And with what is that? 2 eliminations, I believe, as well. So great start here. That means that victory royale was enough to hold it. So despite some of these players getting 7+ eliminations, they were not able or not successful in taking that top spot. So honestly, impressive start. This is what you want to see. If you're one of these players that maybe didn't do as well, right? Or maybe you were more aggressive, got more eliminations, but didn't find yourself at the top of the leaderboard, take this as a lesson. Play a little bit more placement. Worry a little bit less about those engagements and those fights and those eliminations. It's going to be more important. Placement clearly is going to be the top dog here in this race.
Yeah, I think so. Of course, we saw a lot of players getting some high elimination games right there, particularly 88 on height. I think he got 7 eliminations right there, so couldn't even put him in the top 5. So important. That placement is so vital, so crucial as well. So you're getting into that end game, making sure you're in that top 10 where you're getting a placement for every single placement that you are in. So it's going to be so crucial for these players to get the placements and then get the eliminations at the end.
You know what? Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into game number 2. And here it is. We're actually diving in with Bacon, our game 1 champ, landing over there at Coral Castle. And Brandon Chill looks like going a bit of an opposite route, right? It looks to be landing closer to the center map at one of those IO bases like you were talking about.
Yeah, this is a really, really great solo drop. We've seen a lot of course, trios action in the competitive scene, but solos action does bring a few differences in the sort of loot route for a lot of these players. So will they be going to more of these sort of small POIs, or will they be following in the steps of Bacon right here, who is landing as a bigger, sort of more widespread POI, just like Coral Castle? Of course, plenty of loot spawns, plenty of chest spawns here as well, picking himself up that all-important launch pad as well. So a launch pad in solos is such a crucial aspect of rotations because there are so many more teams. There's obviously 100 teams as opposed to 33 teams in trios or 50 in duos. So you're going to have a lot more eyes looking at you from different directions. Of course, people are going to be looking at different areas. So having that launch pad is so crucial, especially off spawn as well. So if he can take that into the end game and really perform well, which we know he can do, then I'm sure that'll be a nice, easy little rotate for him to make. We're hopping on over right now though to Tony, who is contesting 2 other people at Lazy Lake right here. Another POI with plenty of loot spawns, plenty of chest spawns as well. But at the moment, he hasn't seemed to reap the rewards of those chest spawns at the moment. He's got a common pump shotgun and a common burst assault rifle.
Yeah, definitely not the most ideal start to the game for him, but you know what? That's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. So fortunately, though, he is going to get some chug splashes, and that in itself will actually perfectly put him up to full shield, but opting to wait a little bit to use it. So a bit of an interesting decision there. Now that we flip over to Uzi here, who's just trying to dive in onto XO. XO down below here in this Misty Meadows area. And oh, it looks like he's going to use the gas can, but realizes this player is going to try to sneak up here on him. And he says, you know what? I'm going to use the gas can, jump from the other side and try to get an angle, but no angle is going to present itself. And now this house is on fire. He's going to be struggling, and there it is. Shots are exchanging. Uzi does have shield, but now is going to be able to use it. And it looks like Bravo there is just going to disengage there for a bit. It looked like Bravo was going to join the fight, but potentially said, you know what, it's not worth it, as now XO down completely below is going to be the only issue here for Uzi, and potentially the elimination he is looking for.
Yeah, of course, setting those builds on fire is such a crucial aspect, especially off spawn when a lot of players will not have those hard materials to outbuild those flames. So such a crucial little aspect right there. We're seeing 3 players in this sort of area, so the potential for third-party action for Hydra right now, of course, as well, as we see another third party coming in from the other angle as well. We're seeing this player right now having to dodge his way all the way around all these builds. Of course, they're no longer on fire, so he is safe and sound in here. But with only 6 builds, it's going to be very, very tough for him to close out that fight. Of course, we're seeing players from all different angles opting to play a little bit more safely right now, of course. But you are wasting precious time, precious minutes, precious seconds, of which you could be spent looting. So this player right now does seem to be just sitting there right now. We're seeing Uzi down below, making use of the time, making sure that he's farming everything up, every single wall, every single floor, and every single toilet maybe that he can farm to get his way up in those material counts. So this is such an important fight. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of action here at Misty Meadows, but hopping on over to another place we'll be seeing a lot of action. It's Believer Beach.
Yeah, and looking at the way this is going to play out, it does look like there's a ton of players close by. So this is going to be a rough engagement to take regardless. If you do not clean this up quickly, there's going to be more. And it's just going to be nonstop. And with only 30 builds in the inventory, it's really not going to be enough to work with. Now Tweezley on the back foot, going to have to completely try to disengage here. But no, the shots come out from another direction. Just like I was saying, players will begin to get involved here if you are not quick with this fight. And sure enough, Tweezley now actually pushing directly into the other player. And no, unbeknownst to him, he goes down. Now ARBZ trying to get here involved in this fight, does get a nice little 30 tag, and is going to continue to pressure on. It looks like, ooh, right in the box, finishes it up, and there it goes. Gets that nice elimination there onto Blade, and then another elimination onto Dash. If you are ARBZ, you are happy right now.
Wow, that was unbelievable. Unrelenting pressure from so many players, left, right, and center right there. So to come out on top, especially when being third party, is so important as we see another player coming out on top right now. Fixito going down to Hollow, who was another player that performed very well in that endgame. We're seeing ARBZ right here. I think he's just trying to take it all in. He's shocked into silence almost as he's trying to take in what he's just done. He's just eliminated, I think, 3 different people in a row, all at and seemingly the same time, being third party from all different angles. So he's just taking it all in right now, I think, as we're hopping back on over to the Misty Meadows battle, the Battle of Misty, the war at Misty. It seems to be so many different players. There seems to be, I think, 5, maybe 6 another players looming right there as well. So many third-party potentials. Will we see another scene like we saw at the Believer Beach area where one person comes out on top? I think we won't. It looks like someone's launch padded away right there. This player right now just seems to just want to get out of there, and it was Hydra. I think he does go down as well. Yeah, Uzi does manage to get the elimination on that, so that was a really good elimination for him as he now uses the launch pad. A very interesting strategy to use the launch pad this early, Panda.
Yeah, it definitely is, but sometimes aggressive players like that, they just want to keep moving. They want those eliminations, and the eliminations will end up being a little bit more important there than holding on to that launch pad, because I mean, realistically, if you get enough eliminations, you're going to find some more launch pads. But again, that's a separate mindset. When you're in solos, there's a few different mindsets you have to kind of dive into. You have to dive into the aggressive mindset, which is probably a player like Uzi, or you got to dive into the XO mindset, which is a little bit more passive, patient, and waits for those moments in the final parts of the game to get those eliminations. Because guess what? Placement is key. Placement has a lot of value in it. So balancing the two is going to be important, and I think that's what we're seeing here from XO.
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely a very, very smart way to play the game. Of course, maybe he would have seen on the leaderboards that Bacon, of course, getting that victory royale, showing how important placement points really are. Although elimination points are definitely worth a lot of points, and they're definitely very valuable, I think it's very important for these players to make sure they're getting a high placement, whilst maybe picking up a few eliminations here and there. That's obviously very important, but it's a very, very smart play to not take those risky fights, which is very, very, a very good strategy right here from that player right there. It's XO. So we're seeing Cypress right now. It looks as though he's in a bit of an engagement just outside of the sludgy swamp area, and yeah, it's a Grit FN trying to drive away one of those vehicles. Cypress right now using, yeah, almost all of his ammo, and then getting absolutely beamed from another area, another player there. It looks as though this is where the zone is going to be situated in the sort of southern side of the map right now, but yeah, using that vending machine so effectively to almost give him an unlimited supply of mini shields. Of course, there's 4 in stock right there, which is more than enough for a solo player, and if you have the gold, then that could be absolutely vital.
Yeah, it could be vital, but I will notice, or I have noticed this, I should say, in this season, the bars, those gold that you say, the bars in this season have been a little bit less available, in my opinion. I think with the changes to those vaults that we used to have, those different areas that you could drop, you could open it up. It used to be 150 bars in the vault.
Yep.
Now it's only 75. So it's a bit of a nerf there to that, but I think it's effective, and I think it's the right call here. But for players like Jivy, it looks like not even gold or bars are going to save you, because you are in a tough spot here, found in Storm and still at the edge of Catty Corner.
Yeah, Catty Corner, of course, a very, very interesting place to fight at. There are plenty of those noms boxes in this POI. A lot of people do really enjoy this POI for that reason, but of course you do have those heals, which means that fights can take a little bit longer. They can draw out a little bit longer. Of course, you do have the usage of that corn, the cabbage, all of those various vegetable goodies that you can get inside of those noms boxes. So we often do see fights that do draw out a little bit longer than usual here, but I think GB right now, understanding of that, he thinks, okay, I'm just going to get out of here. I don't know what heals that opposing player has, and of course I really don't want to waste those chug splashes, of which he gets 2 extras right here to bring him up to the max of almost every heal right now. So he's in a really, really good situation, a really good position as well, being able to get some Storm Surge tags on the players that are rotating behind. And Clancy right now not in as good of a position, because it looks as though he might be getting into an engagement in just a moment with all these players rotating in.
Yeah, this is a bit of a congested spot, to say the least. There's a lot of players here in the vicinity. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like anybody's going to be focusing him. However, if you're Clouty, you want some tags, and you potentially even want to refresh, because 109 builds is not max. It is not where you ideally want to be here in the mid game, or the early parts of the mid game. And fortunately, there's a lot of players close by. So maybe the mindset here of Clouty is that I want eliminations. I may want those tags. I kind of welcome somebody to try and focus me in this moment, because that could be the refresh that he's looking for here, especially considering Storm Surge could become active here quite soon.
Yeah, really good. Looks like Gavin right here, though, going down. These sort of early to, well, maybe mid-game engagements that we're seeing right here, early end-game engagements. These are so crucial for these players, especially in solos where you don't have those teammates to look out for those Storm Surge tags. If you can pick up a nice early elimination, as Critic just does, his first of the game right here, this is such an important moment for him, because he's likely now sorted himself out for at least the first Surge threshold, if it does indeed take place. And he looks as though he's got himself a good refresh as well. Max minis, max big pots, as well as a harpoon, which we talked about earlier. So crucial for getting those late game refreshes, because you don't have those teammates to carry your items as you would do in duos or trios. So you only have 5 inventory slots to try and balance, to try and manage, and to try and juggle all of your loot almost, making it into endgame. So I think we'll be seeing that used a lot right here. And as you can see, Hallow right here having plenty above the Storm Surge threshold. He's up on high ground. We can see him just at the sort of northern side of this zone, as almost every single player is already situated in the zone. Of course, that could be due to a lot of the roads networks leading into this area, as well as a nice amount of water for these players to rotate through. So a lot of these players do opt to be on the southern side of the map, as is Rap right here, who does have a Shadow Flopper. We talked about it before. These are a really, really interesting late game rotation strategy, Panda.
It definitely is. It's kind of interesting here for Rap. I think they know that they're not necessarily in the best spot here health-wise, so they're going to need something big here to turn it around. And I'm not sure where the shots were going, but some shots connected, some shots didn't. And that player was able to actually escape there. So Rap still struggling here on health. And no, as I say that, actually gets tagged up there by another player. Going to have to be careful. Nice little exchange, but no, it's not going to be enough. Rap does go down. It's actually Tree, our second place player there in game number 1, able to clean that up with their first elimination of the game.
Yeah, that's a really great elimination for Tree right there. That's really going to be boosting his confidence going to this end game. He now has 4 of the Shadow Floppers, of course, as well. The usage of that launch pad, which he would have just got from that elimination right there, of course, as well. Almost too much loot for him to carry, which is, as I mentioned earlier, of course, you don't necessarily have that many inventory slots. So he's going to be struggling to carry all of that loot, or he might just sit on that loot right now and make sure that no one else tries to get it. Of course, that's going to be such a crucial refresh for him and a great confidence booster going into the latter stages of game number 2 right here. We're seeing our game number 1 winner right here. Bacon, we've gone from second to first, as we see him in a really, really good position. Looks as though he's close enough to 88 on height to where he might be able to get some Storm Surge tags if it does concern him, but we know how aggressive and how important eliminations are, and how important eliminations are to 88 on height in particular, because he's a very aggressive player. We saw it in the last game. He's definitely not shy to fight.
Yeah, he definitely isn't shy, but it's going to break down to this, right? Like, you know how valuable placement is, but you have to be patient. Like, but you also have to get aggressive at times. Like, it's so crazy to think about the intricacies of a point system like this, because there's value in it all. There's true value in eliminations, value in placement. There's a little bit more of an imbalance, I think, towards eliminations in this, which makes it a little bit more exciting and more viable here for solos, because it's not as easy to get eliminations in solos. But here it is, Surge now affecting Honcho here. Honcho going to have to try to overheal or out-heal Storm, and this is going to be tough. But with Sun close by, it could be worth just trying to take one shot, because guess what? Honcho, only 31 damage below.
Yeah, all he needs is one more tag. Of course, one more player does need to be eliminated, and that is him currently. He is the one that is below the Storm Surge threshold. He needs to make something happen right now, or he needs to wait for another player to get eliminated. He can't really out-heal. He has no more heals left, and now he is no longer in the game. Honcho is the final person in this current Storm to be eliminated to the Storm Surge threshold right there. That was unfortunate for him. I almost felt as though he had to be a little bit more aggressive going there. Maybe he didn't want to give the other player the elimination, and of course, those extra extra 2 points, or maybe he just gave up. Maybe he thought, okay, let's just keep our mindset for the next game. Not too sure. Maybe a little bit more of an aggressive play style would have worked in his favor there. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to call, and that's the nice thing about what we do, right? We try to break down the understanding of what's happening in front of you, but we can't always tell what's going through some of these players' heads. But we can tell what's going on with Brandon. Brandon says, you know what, I'm getting this elimination and I'm cleaning up because I'm gonna go for another first place finish.
Yeah, Brandon is on a roll right now. He's got himself an elimination. That's going to be a huge confidence booster and, of course, a loot booster going into the end game. He has one of those shadow floppers as well. We talked about it a little bit earlier on. Such a crucial way of rotating, particularly this season. So now, though, he does seem to be getting laser from another angle. So fishing right here, very, very interesting strategy. He does pull himself a flopper as well, which is a very, very good idea from him right there to pick that up, of course. Now he has more loot to balance, and maybe he's going to use, he's going to use these chug splashes, I believe, to pick up all of the loot that he wants. But yeah, as you mentioned, he of course won the previous play versus finals, the solo finals, so he's definitely used to winning. He's definitely got that experience as well, so I think that could definitely play a part in today's tournament.
It definitely can. I think going into this, it makes you a little bit more motivated. I think understanding that you have the potential to walk away in a first place spot is vital. It's vital for your confidence here going into this, because it's not easy to get to this point. So if you're able to do that with a first place, you're feeling pretty confident. Somebody that's not feeling pretty confident, though, it is Van Hoos. Van Hoos ends up going down there. Mercy actually applying some pressure, and tons of players actually pressuring in here. And if you're Swoley, the last thing you want to do is be a part or be at the other end of this focus. So you're going to have to be careful when you're trying to gather the loot from that eliminated player. However, it looks like another player's gone down, and it's actually 88 on height. In game 1, we saw 7+ eliminations from 88 on height. So this is definitely an early draw to the game for them.
Yeah, that definitely could be a bit of a shocker for 88 on height right there. Maybe a bit of a wake-up call that maybe you can't be pushing, you can't be so aggressive. He might have looked at those 2 points per elimination and thought, yes, I'm going to go and try and W key a lot of players right now, maybe pick up some nice eliminations. But as we mentioned before, this is a very, very high skill level lobby. You simply cannot be going for eliminations that crazy. You know, you have to have a little bit more composure, a little bit more patience to your game. So maybe we'll see his game plan and strategy develop throughout the day. So I don't think it's too bad of a situation for him. He has already got those eliminations in game number 1, so he has got a decent amount of points going into game number 3, but I'm sure he'd be very disappointed with that. As we see FanTDM right now making his way into the zone, utilizing those peppers very effectively, of course, as well. In solos, these are so good because you don't have to drop them for your teammates. You can just pop one and then away you go. So a really, really great rotation device for FanTDM and a lot of these players right here as he's healing his way back up, and he's way above the Storm Surge right there as well.
Yeah, this is a good start. This is what you want to see. If you are FanTDM, you are feeling comfortable here in game number 2, and what looks like only 8 points on the board in that game, it's going to be a bit of a comeback. They're going to need to perform in this game to climb the leaderboard, and that's what it's all about. You need to make sure, if you're not having a successful game number 1, you're finding a way to come back here in game number 2, because it's time. And Jarian fan understands that. Actually placed pretty well there in the final moments of game number 1. So just looking to repeat that same energy here in game number 2.
Yep, definitely getting that momentum is so important, of course. I think once you got game number 1 out of the way, it's a real, I think it's just a little bit more of a, you can sort of settle the nerves. You can calm the nerves a little bit. Maybe if a few of these players will be a little bit nervous going into this, they might have just settled those nerves now. So we might be seeing a little bit more aggressive playstyle right now as we see Cheetah right here using that harpoon very, very effectively, as we see Brandon getting an elimination in the feed right there as well. And now Berserk trying to go for that loot, of course, but there are 2 other players, including Cheetah Sphinx right here going for that with their harpoons, as Brandon going down in the feed right there as well. So a very, very tough situation for him. And now Killsy sees the next zone. It's the 5th zone. It's the half and half, of course. So we're going to be seeing what's going to be happening in this one. Is he going to be able to rotate in unscathed? Of course, he does have that pepper as well. That pepper is so crucial, especially when making those late game rotates when the zone is so small. And especially if you don't have the materials, it can definitely account for that and sort of cover for your lack of materials. I really like how he's rotating early here, but no, that is the only issue with rotating early. He gets landed in on by one of the other players and gets eliminated. What happened there?
Listen, you have to be careful. If you see somebody coming directly at you, you got to close up the wall. You cannot take those risks of players just diving into your box, because as we saw there, you can get eliminated, and it is just not the way you want to go out here in game number 2. But fortunately, there's going to be some more games to play. Don't even sweat it. We got 4 more matches for you to make something happen, despite going down in that way. But for Outplay Trapper, this is going to be a bit different. 1 elimination on the board, a decent loadout going into the late game, and all of the launch pads you could possibly need. Now, in my opinion, right here, you pop a pad as soon as this zone starts moving. You want to make sure you utilize all those launch pads as effectively as possible, because your materials are valuable, and the last thing you want to do is utilize too many material early on. So the best way to rotate here in this zone is going to be that launch pad. Fortunately, there for Albert, they had many. So does Curex here. Curex actually has what looks like potentially even more launch pads than the other player did. So kudos to them. Definitely going to be a solid few zones here, but will they be able to maintain it? That's the question. And will it be a high ground play early, or will we wait to see high ground even become a thing?
Yeah, as you mentioned right there, using those launch pads nice and early is going to be so important, as Ace right here picks up an elimination at the back of zone. This is where he can use that time very, very effectively. If he does have that launch pad, then he can, of course, wait a little bit longer and spray back at those people that are waiting and trying to make their way into the zone. Of course, it looks like he's going to offer the pepper play right now, which is a very, very interesting strategy. I think using the launch pad earlier rather than later is very good, of course, because then you get to save those materials. A lot of these players will be running low on materials in the end game, and if you have that higher material count, then you definitely have the upper hand. So interesting strategy right there. Maybe he'll use it for second moving zone, but it looks as though it's Palasty right here all the way up on high. He's established his way up there as well, so doesn't look as though too many people are contesting him for that right now, as we see GV right there going down in the feed. Hollow trying to make it play as well, and here we see the person on high ground right now. It's Palasty all the way up there. Again though, the material count not looking too good. Should be able to hold it for a little bit, but if he does get contested and someone tries to go up for it, or someone tries to go for the opposite height, as I think it was Reciprocal right there has done, it's not gonna last, and neither does the life of Cheetah Sphinx right there, who does get eliminated to Hollow 4, who, as we know, is very, very effective in these endgame situations.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We see these players beginning to fall, and these are the vital moments for these players to get some nice points going into game number 3. But looking at it here, Hallow actually picks up an elimination there, probably from Storm is what it looks like, and that's definitely a good pickup there onto Lurk Nada. Now Hallow just kind of waiting very patiently, looking to see if there's anybody he can catch off guard there in the back of zone. But looking at the way these players are positioned, it looks like Palasty is going to continue to maintain high ground, and with these elevation changes that we're seeing here in this southern zone, it could be pretty tough to maintain this high ground.
Yeah, and we're seeing Palasty right here maintaining that high ground right now very, very well. We see Tony going down right there in the elimination feed, and Ascent Zai right now looking at this in the top right of the screen, nearly going down into the storm. We're seeing Free right now as well, who is a very, very highly placed player going into this game in second. Does get eliminated right there, though. We're seeing Berserk right now. 6 players remain. Berserk looking at that high ground, trying to find a little way to break it down. He does so very effectively, as well as Palasty tries to catch himself. But Berserk, does he have the materials to go up for it? He has the shot. That was a fantastic charge shotgun shot right there. Maybe this could open up the door. Maybe this could open up the door to high ground, as Palasty doesn't have the materials to hold it either. So this could be a wide open door for Berserk, and he does take it. He walks right through that door. He's saying, thank you very much. I will take that high ground, and he has the tools to hold it as well. That charge shotgun, so effective from range, and he has the ammo to spray down as well. This could be the moment for Berserk right now.
This could be the moment, and like you said, just the effective setup here in these final moments is going to be super important. Will Berserk be able to maintain it? 30 builds here remaining in the inventory, and another player has now decided to contest high ground, and the shots are going to exchange. Berserk just barely, narrowly getting that shot there off, and no, it actually looks like Seek is now on the low ground by himself, and it's going to start knocking out players, and it works out. Palasty goes down, and Seek with 7 eliminations takes home the victory royale here in game number 2.
Wow, that was a complete opposite of what we saw in game number 1 right there. Low ground being king. It almost seemed as though the two players battling on high kind of didn't work out in their favor. Of course, there was a player lurking down below that was ready to pounce and, of course, break down all of those builds, especially since they're wood builds as well. They do not take very long to break, and that was a really, really great way to close out game number 2. What a win. What an interesting elimination to win it with as well, and low ground comes out on top in game number 2.
Yeah, definitely what we wanted to see. We wanted to see low ground kind of turn some things around. We didn't want to see just nonstop high ground dominance there. And that's what I mentioned. I mentioned that high ground was going to be a little bit more different, a little bit more difficult here in this zone because there's going to be so much material utilized to get to that high elevation point that no one was going to have what it took to maintain it. Solos is so different here than in these team-based modes, because in team-based modes you have 3 players to split material and maintain high ground, but in solos it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I think with the increase in these high ground retake devices like the Shadow Floppers and other devices like that, maybe the launch pads as well, we're seeing a lot more players battling it out for high ground. So maybe the players down on low ground like Seek right there can reap the rewards. So as we saw in that game number 2 right there, he definitely took advantage of that and just thought, you know what, everyone is fighting up there. I'll just chill down here and get myself a victory royale.
Well, you know what? It was a great victory royale indeed, but before we can figure out what's going on after that victory royale, we got to jump into a quick break. So make sure to stay tuned and we'll be right back. What an incredible game number 2 we just got to watch here at the Play Versus Finals solo event for high school featuring Fortnite. And we got those leaderboards ready for you. I mean, we just saw an incredible game. Now we got to see how that changes the leaderboards here. And there it is, our second place player in Tree actually moving up to first place. So taking over that spot from Bacon, who now finds himself in second.
Yeah, really, really great consistency from Tree right there, showing how important consistency is. But Seek right there coming in with the victory royale in game 2, showing how clutches can happen. In first game, he had 41st with 0 eliminations, and then coming in clutch with a 7 elimination victory in game number 2. So really just shooting his way up the leaderboard right there, going into 4th, of course, with a great victory royale right there as well. We're seeing a lot of other players right there. 88 on height, couldn't quite replicate the same sort of aggressive play style that he had in game number 1. He couldn't quite get the eliminations. He only had 2, but he got a 61st place in that previous game. So not the best game for him. I'm sure he'll want to improve.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you. I think one of the things going into this, right? You and I both said some names that we were excited to see on the player list, but none of those names we talked about are up at the top of the leaderboard, meaning that there's a lot of fresh faces here making an impact and showing that they have what it takes to be at the top of the play versus finals leaderboard. And I'm impressed because solos is no easy feat. It is taxing and grueling competition, but these players know that and they know how to handle it, which is why they find themselves up at the top of the leaderboard. But will it stay the same way? That's the question. And that's the question I'm going to pose to you here, Mini Miner. Will it be a dominant performance from the top 5 that we see now, or will there be some big shifts and that top 5 look very different by the end of it?
Well, I personally think we'll see plenty of some clutches today. Plenty of clutches from some players that we are more used to seeing. Of course, Seek right there coming in with a 7 elimination victory royale, showing how important these big elimination victory royale or top 5 placement games can be. So I think it's definitely not all done and dusted yet, most certainly. But I think we're going to see some big players coming in clutch later on.
That's going to be awesome. Look, I'm excited. Let's dive in. The battle bus is already underway here, and we jump in with these players here, and it looks like it's Breery here at Sludgy Swamp. What do you think of the adjustments here at Sludgy? Used to be Slurpy Swamp, then they took the basically like the center of Slurpy Swamp away and changed the name. Do you think it's still a viable spot here in these games?
I think it's definitely a viable solo spot as we're hopping on over here with Zuri right here. It's definitely a viable solo spot. He goes down right there, though, with great elimination from Grits. But yeah, I think it's definitely a viable solo spot because the chest spawns have been reduced. There's only 10 potential chest spawns at the POI now, where, of course, there used to be plenty more. So it's definitely not viable, I don't think, anymore for a trio or duo. But I think definitely we could be seeing some solos going here today.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited to see. I want to see how these players can handle themselves, especially when they're contested off spawn. We've gotten to see a lot of that action taking place pretty early on in these games. But for a player like EXE, AUEXE, you gotta love the names. He's definitely gonna be struggling here. He does look like he has a pretty aggressive player on top of what he's got going on, and now he's just trying to break in, and no, he's not going to be able to get that shield off, and ends up going down here to Cloudsy. Cloudsy performing exceptionally well in the last game, but not quite finding himself at the top. So looking to make up for that here with a couple of additional eliminations here in the early game. Now, though, we switch the focus over to Boney Burbs. 3 players here find themselves all looting separate areas, but soon enough, I have a feeling they're all going to contest in one location.
Yeah, I think so, especially with a player like 88 on height looming over. We know how aggressive he is, but hopping on over towards the Dirty Docks area of the map. Looks like it's being contested by an extra player now. We saw 3 players here earlier. Now it seems to be there is 4. So it looks as though there's a bit of a battle sort of brewing right here between Sin and Shots right now. So it's a very tough battle for Sin right now because he doesn't have that many materials. Only 1 build to his name, of course. This is tough for him right now. He doesn't necessarily have the loot. He doesn't necessarily have the HP. Or indeed, he doesn't have the materials. So let's see if he can come out on top in this engagement. But no, he can't. It's always going to be tough right there. They've got to be very, very careful for those third parties. But it looks as though it's Shots, yeah, coming out on top with that elimination. And it looks as though Misty Meadows, I think it looks as though they've sort of finished this fight already. It's sort of all over, which is contrary to the previous game where things seem to drag out a little bit longer as these early game fights can. And now we're seeing this Draws player right now getting into an engagement just by this bridge area. It's Brandon Chill, who we know rotates here, but no, he's going to get eliminated right here as well as Brandon Chill gets taken the L on by Draws right there. What an elimination and what an important elimination for him.
Yeah, look, this is a bit of an interesting fight. We've seen Brandon Chills actually end up winning these off-spawn engagements, but unfortunately finds himself falling there in match number 3. So this is where it changes, right? Same thing with 88 on height. We saw him drop there in game number 2, and now in game number 3, falling as well. You know at this point he is struggling. He knows that he's making some mistakes. Maybe a little bit of too early aggression. I don't know. But ultimately, he's going to have to make some changes to the game plan, and that's going to be super important here. If you are not being as successful as you would like here, you got to make those changes because we're in match number 3. We're getting to the halfway mark, and there's only 3 games remaining after this. So If you want your chance to climb the leaderboard and take home some of that cash, you're gonna need to make some changes.
Yeah, this is such an important part of the game, or the entire tournament right now, is the game number 3, of course, the midpoint of the whole cup today. So it's going to be an important point for these players to start to establish their spots on the leaderboard and really look at how they're performing at the current stage in their first 2 games, and then maybe make some changes going into the final few games. So maybe that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing some difference in strategy, as it looks as though the player that eliminated 88 on height may have realized that his loot path was a little bit more effective than 88, so he went for that early elimination, and it paid off, as we see Free right here, maybe going in for one of those, but Fallen definitely is going in for one of those. It's Keith versus Fallen right now. Fallen having that lever shotgun, that blue lever shotgun, of course, hasn't got quite the same range as the shotgun that Keith has, but he does have that very, very capable close range shotgun ability, so he can get a really, really nice body shot damage off if he does close the gap between him and Keith, as Keith tries to look for plenty of angles, which he does find. A great shot right now from Fallen, who is not quite full HP. He can get up to full HP if he wants to. What will be the play here for Fallen? Let's have a look. Does he go for a bit more of aggressive play style? He does. This is amazing from Fallen. He does pick up the eliminator. Or was that a third party? No, it was Reciprocal who was coming in the third party area. I don't think Fallen would be too disappointed with that, because he does, of course, pick up that upgraded pump shotgun, but Reciprocal saying, no, I'm not happy with one. I'm coming in for more. Fallen could be about to fall, because no, he does, and that's an amazing elimination. Wow, that was incredible. What a way to turn the tide on that fight right there.
It is all about the angles that you can hold. That's the super important part in a fight like that. You have to make sure you are maintaining these angles and take advantage of them in this fight. And that's what we see here from Fallen. Fallen quickly identifying that this player was kind of leaving himself open in Reciprocal, and he took advantage of it. And Fallen, very, very smart play in that engagement. But now we focus. We up on Pleasant Park here. We shift that focus over here to Aoxy and Dasharuni. It looks like potentially a SAF fan just down below here in the gas station. And Aoxy is just trying to find him. Looks like he's not quite sure where Dasharuni is, but there it is. Dasharuni getting actually some nice tags off to start this fight. This could be the advantage he needs, because if you look at his health, he's not looking the best at this point.
Yeah, he might not be, of course, going down in HP a little bit early on in that fight. That definitely gets your fight off to a bit of a bad start. Of course, you are then sort of on the back foot a little bit in these engagements, so you really don't want to give your opponent that confidence to push you, as it seems though Dash right now is trying to retain that high ground up over his opponent. Of course, we're hopping on over to the other angle. Aoxy just trying to retain and save his materials for the lower ground situation right now, as Dash right now looks as though, yeah, he is just going to rotate out. I think that's a smart play. Looking at his material count right now, he doesn't really have the materials. I mean, neither does Aoxy, so I think that's a solid fight. Maybe not for Aoxy. I don't think he got too much damage off on the other player, but I think it was definitely a very, very solid fight to take. Maybe it's a very, very smart play to disengage. We see Brewi right here, though, who is definitely not disengaged in the sludgy swamp area. Talked about it before, about how little loot chest spawns there are right here now, but it looks as though he's got some solid loot in his inventory.
Yeah, this is what you need as far as playing out the rest of this game goes. This is a solid inventory, got great heals, got a great loadout, but not great material. And the reason for that is this fight clearly has been going on for quite some time. With only 29 builds remaining in the inventory, that tells me that this fight has probably been going on for a few moments before we got here. So now watching how this fight ensues, it's going to be super important here for Brewi to try and clean this up as quickly as possible. Shots are going out, exchanges are happening, and Brewi is definitely has the advantage. But for this other player on the other side of this wall, it's about holding on as long as you can.
Yeah, it definitely is. Maybe trying to find a nice angle to get a shot off on Brewi as well. Of course, we see his heals. He does have plenty of them. But, of course, if he does get a shot off on Brewi, it could buy him some extra time. But I think it looks as though Brewi might be able to close out this engagement. The tides can turn very, very quickly, though. Of course, things can change so quickly in these engagements. So Brewi understands that he's not being too over-aggressive. He's getting inside the box, but not making any silly angles, silly plays. But he is trying to get this fight over and done with. It looks as though there is another player lurking, looming at the northern side of Sludgy Swamp. So they have got to be very careful right now. This Slab trying to get some shots off, can't quite connect, but Brewi can, and he clutches up that elimination right there. He has the loot, he has the refresh, and of course that all-important early game elimination.
That's what you love to see here. And looking at the way that this played out, it definitely played out in his favor. He gets the elimination points. He gets the refresh there, but it's still not what you need to perform well in the mid game. So we may see another engagement take place there around Sludgy Swamp, but looking at this, it's actually Blair here going up against, I believe that was Sun. And they're now both fighting here in Storm. This is so tough to watch for both players. Blair, very, very weak, has the med kit in the inventory to change that, but unfortunately not being given the chance to do it. Now, Blair needs the elimination onto Sun, has no choice. The only way to survive here in these final moments is if he gets the elimination, and I don't think it's going to happen, as he does end up going down. Unfortunately, Sun does apply enough pressure, keeping him from being able to pop that med kit. And fortunately, though, Sun's going to be able to pick up those med kits and keep it going. Now, Dream caught up outside of Sludgy Swamp, potentially right near where Sun could be rotating inward. And it's Breery right there on the other end, still being aggressive.
Yep, there's that third party that I talked about earlier on. So Brewy is definitely not home and dry right now. He has to make sure that he's not going to be taking too much damage. Of course, wasting those heals early on is definitely not what he wants to do. It looks as though he's had to use a few of them already, but he looks to be doing pretty good, though. He has his elimination. Of course, he has his Storm Surge as well, so not too bad of a disengagement for him. I think that's a very smart play. He knows how important placements can be in this format, and he has himself that elimination as well, which is absolutely vital for the Storm Surge, getting the confidence up as well, even just on the mental side of things, going into the midpoint of this tournament today. It's going to be a very, very big confidence booster for him, as well as having such a good loadout as well, and a spare inventory slot, so maybe he'd be looking at something like a Harpoon to fill that slot to be able to get some refreshes. Who knows, as he's trying to farm his way up right here. It looks as though his material count is a little bit lower, but we talked about it before, about these corrupted areas. They can yield a lot of brick.
That they can. And looking at the way that this player is going to rotate, there's a lot more than brick to put in the inventory. You know, when you get over here towards this log jam region, you're going to be able to get a lot of wood as well, and even potentially some metal. Not necessarily max metal when it comes to material, there's still quite a bit here in this area. So fortunately for Brewery, going to be able to rotate here and find some things on the way. Now, though, Aoxy finds himself in Believer Beach right there on the dock. And I'm kind of interested. You see what he's doing. He's actually fishing there for the small fry and for other things. And sure enough, he actually pulls out the new semi-automatic sniper rifle here for the season. So kind of interesting to see what this player is going to be able to pull out of non-fishing spots.
Yeah, really interesting strategy right here. I mean, you don't really see this too often, of course, players utilizing the non-fishing spot way of getting loot. I don't think I've seen this almost ever in competitive Fortnite. He's really utilizing the time well. He is only 84 above the Storm Surge threshold right now, though, so it's a little bit difficult for him to find those tags, especially since everyone is already situated, but he's really utilizing that very well. You can pull some ammo from the non-fishing spots area, maybe a little bit of mats as well, so definitely not an area of which I would have expected to see the players use today, but definitely a very interesting strategy indeed, as we're sort of panning over the Believer Beach area right here, hopping inside this main building, as it looks as though there's plenty of players utilizing the refarming ability of that. Plenty of brick in there, of course, as well for these players, and we're seeing one of the players up on height right now. It's Spooky right there, all the way up on high ground, establishing that high ground early on, so if Zone does pull his way, he definitely can use that to his advantage, and having that high ground is so important for getting those Storm Surge tags as well. So if you're a little bit lower on the Storm Surge tags, maybe you haven't had that early game engagement to pick some up, I think his positioning right there is pretty much perfect for this zone.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree that the positioning here for those Surge tags, like you mentioned, it's kind of the ideal spot here as far as where you want to be in this zone. But hopefully the zone continues to pull in their favor. Looking at it, though, it does look like it could potentially pull further towards the center. When it comes to zone number 3, and it comes to talking about ideal positions, that's where you really want to find yourself. Because when you locate yourself or position yourself there in the center of that third zone, you end up being able to almost guarantee your fourth zone right in where you build. So you're utilizing less material. You get to kind of refresh or recycle what you already have existing builds wise in zone 3 to zone 4, and you find yourself in center zone, so there's going to be players rotating all around. It makes it pretty easy to get those tags. Now, the hotel position is also nice as well. Like you mentioned, because those storm surge tags are going to be very, very difficult. It's not always something that's guaranteed here in these games, so any high ground position that you can take, it's worth taking.
Yeah, it definitely is. We just saw Seek right there going down in the feed as well, our game number 2 winner. So that's a big turning point in the leaderboards, I'm sure, as well. So not quite being able to replicate that success in game number 3 for him now. So Strike's trying to rotate his way and using this hill as a really nice way of covering his way from other players. Looks like he's going to box up on the other side of the hill as well. So maybe he'd be looking to get above a little bit. I think he's happy down here, though, because he's not going to be getting focused by other players. But of course, he is already above that storm surge threshold, so he doesn't necessarily need to be in that more advanced and higher position that we see a lot of these players adopting, because he already has those 2 eliminations, and I think he understands, yeah, Nugget is making his way over towards him right now, so Strikes might be getting in another engagement to pick up yet another elimination, or will Nugget pick up an elimination and quite possibly a crucial refresh for him right now, because he doesn't have too much materials. His loot is, I mean, he's only taking up 3 inventory slots, and he's got no heals, quite crucially, especially going into these end games. This is going to be a really good refresh for him if he can find it.
Yeah, but that's the question. Will he be able to find it? This player looks like he's willing and ready to use every last material in his inventory to survive. So it's going to be a rough call, especially looking at the way that they're positioned. It's very unlikely that they're going to pull 4th zone. Even if it pulls even just a slight bit away, it's very unlikely that they're going to be able to get it, because you never really see these edge sections being able to pull zone, but it can happen. We know now that it didn't happen, but now it's more of a question of, how am I going to rotate? Am I going to use a launch pad? Is somebody else going to use a launch pad? Will I be able to recycle a launch pad? Because you know that player does not have the material to rotate. Same thing here. You look at the inventory here, and only 110 builds to use. That is not much. That's why you actually see them jumping into the box here, going up against Brutus, now trying to get this quick little refresh and hope that Brutus has the materials that they so desperately need. But the angles are coming out. Now big tag coming out in their favor. Brutus now pressuring, not going to be able to hold it, and now they have gone down. Brutus still up and available here, and now just holding on. A little bit more material here for Brutus, but again, the other player just didn't have too much to work with. So Brutus is going to continue to struggle here and be a little bit deficient when it comes to the material that they'll need to be sufficient in the mid and late game.
Yeah, that was almost an essential fight right there from that player. Couldn't quite clutch up and come out on top. But Brutus right here, that's a really great refresh from it. Looking at it from the other angle, he's got plenty of materials now that he managed to get from that player. But crucially, I saw on the floor, he got himself a launch pad as well. That might have been his only launch pad. So that refresh not only gets him the elimination, that extra 2 points gets him the storm surge, gets him the refresh, but it also gets him some more rotation conditions. Just like that launch pad, we talked about it before, how important it is, especially if you're in a less than favorable position. You can almost sort of put yourself in less than favorable positions now, because you don't necessarily need to rotate on foot or need to have a clear path to zone. You can launch pad out from anywhere and sort of everywhere. So a really, really great pickup from that player right there. So now we're seeing a lot of players boxing up on the low ground, lots of fighting going on, of course, as well. Interestingly enough, nobody's situating themselves all the way up on there. Maybe that's just going to be outside of the zone on the right-hand side of the screen. That sort of crashed ship right there. Just seeing Fallen and another couple of big names right here as well, just boxing their way up. GV a little bit lower down, of course, as well. So this is what I was talking about situating yourself in a little bit of a lower situation. So anyone that's down here, maybe Prudus right there, you can see he picked up that launch pad. He really doesn't need to be up on these mountains, which of course could potentially get him focused. So that launch pad not only offers you that rotation, but it also offers you that positioning advantage and sort of flexibility with where you position yourself.
Yeah, and flexibility is going to be key. I like the way that you said that. I think it's kind of one of those situations where people understand it, they don't know how to word it, and you've got to worded it pretty nicely there. I appreciate that. But looking at what Lurk Nada has going on, a bit of a Kanata fan. I like it. I love to see it. Looking to maintain that damage threshold and maintain being above that damage threshold. So it's going to be super important. With only being about 90 damage above the threshold, that's not enough to maintain it. You need to make sure you are getting those tags quickly, because the last thing you want to have to deal with is Storm Surge. Let's be honest. Storm Surge is probably the biggest threat in any of these competitive games, and we're seeing it right here as DeMarco taking a ton of damage due to Surge, and now Blood actually with only 1 point on the board here. It looks like it's a placement point. Is struggling to survive. The zone is now closing in here for zone number 5. Has a launch pad and is probably going to have to use it here momentarily. Not looking too solid here as far as what they have, but no, they're going to recycle a launch and fortunately make it through. But if anybody looks in their direction, it's going to be a quick return back to the lobby.
Yeah, it definitely will, of course. Being on that lower end of the material count as well is definitely not going to help you when you're going into this end game. As we see DeMarco right now, he decided to rotate in late. He decided to get a little bit greedy maybe for that loot. And now him and his legendary pump shotgun have been eliminated. That is it. That is unfortunate for him, though. Making that late rotate can, of course, come off sometimes. But in that situation, did not happen. Now we're seeing Shay with only 2 points on the board, which I think is placement as well. So, of course, in that top 50 right now, getting that placement, the ammo count not looking too great. Neither is the material count, but he does have the usage of that harpoon as well. We've seen so many players going for those refreshes. As you saw, you have to be a little bit careful when going for them and sort of situating yourself in a position where you're not going to get sprayed by a lot of the other players. But there's definitely potential here in this in Shay's endgame, but he definitely has to make sure that he's going to be trying to find those refreshes sooner rather than later, as he's sort of on the low ground section of the map right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And looking at the high ground right now, it's kind of anybody's game. You see Jivvy actually positioning and getting ready to potentially take that high ground spot. You see Sun up there as well, already kind of established there in wood on top of the old hotel. It's kind of a tough call to see what's going to happen next, but Sun actually below the damage threshold, but in the perfect position to get the damage that they so desperately need here in this moment. So you see all the players rotating around now, going for that pad, hitting it with a bit of a short pad. But remember, now 67 damage below is going to need significant damage here to stay above that threshold. So the shots need to come out here soon for Suns, but no, the shots are actually coming out towards Sun, and now on the back foot, going to have to take a moment to heal.
Yeah, he really will. He has no materials in his inventory either, which is contrary to Palestine right now, who does seem to have quite a lot. Maybe he'll make a little bit of a high play right now. Maybe it's a little bit too early. Of course, we saw him on high ground a little bit earlier on, which sort of did work out for him. So maybe he'll go for that again. It looks as though he is going to use those materials to maybe claim second height right now, which is sometimes a position that you don't want to be in, but it does give you that opportunity. If you hear the cracked shield from above, or you maybe get a little beam on the person on height, it does give you the sort of close proximity to the high ground, which allows you to crank your way up, all the way up onto high ground. As we see Sun right now, we're hopping back on board with him, not in a very favorable position, but he is now. A great elimination, Sneaky in the back of the zone, but now there's another player that's sneaking, but Sun takes them out. It's Mercy right there going down. Sneaky versus Sneaky, and it's Amur as well that does go down to Sun's shot. A fantastic elimination, but is he going to be able to make it back into the zone? 10 HP, only 1-6 to Storm, and he will be eliminated. So this is a crucial moment for Sun, but he can't make it last any longer as Dash comes in with the elimination to take out Sun right there. A valiant effort.
Yeah, and actually a really good elimination there on the back of zone, understanding that players could still be behind, taking that edit and ultimately getting the elim. But looking at the elimination feed, Dash quickly went down just shortly after. So definitely a tough fall there for them. But speaking of people like Fall, it's Fall in, still in this game, and actually finds himself in a pretty respectable spot here in the mid layer. So if Fallen continues to play this appropriately, they have the potential and they should be able to take high ground.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, being on that just layer below high ground is very, very important. You know, it can get you sprayed, but especially since high ground right now, I believe is built out of brick or wood, actually, I think it was, that is built up on right now. So it sort of indicates to the players down below that they are looking weak, but also looking weak is Sidey right now, who does get eliminated. Curix is 150 shot to the head. A fantastic elimination from Curix right now. If he can make his way back into the zone, it's the final zone, the ultimate moment in game number 3 right here of the play versus high school solo finals. This is such an important moment for Curix right now. If he can rack up some eliminations and, of course, getting that all-important placement, he's got the loot to do it, but he hasn't got the materials, Panda.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is it. This is the final moment. You got players left and right of you trying to do the same thing as you are, both with the same goal. But will Curex be the one that comes out on top? You see the epic pump shotgun, the legendary assault rifle, literally every tool in the inventory except for additional material. So refresh may be an absolute necessity here. But no, here's another play on the wall, and a nice. There is the refresh we were just talking about moments ago. Curex now back in this game, getting that elim. But with the pressure going on around, it could be anybody else's game. Now Jivy, though, still in this game, looking to play the low ground and doing a great job at that. But no, as I say it, it actually gets the elimination there onto Barry. High ground just still pressuring from above. Jivy just trying to hold on from down below. Great layering here, but Snazadon knows that he's running out of material, knows that they have very, very little to work with from the high ground besides this ammo and the pressure from above. So now Jivy, with one build left, is not going to be able to hold on as Snazadon ends up getting the final elimination there with 6 eliminations and the victory royale. I mean, just honestly impressive.
Yeah, very, very impressive with Snazadon right there, picking up the high ground play a little bit later on, as we talked about before. But I think what's most crucial about that end game performance right there, he didn't get too greedy. It seemed like it was an all-out war on low ground right there. We saw GV involved as well, but he didn't drop down. He didn't try and get too greedy himself. He made sure to close out the game, clutched up that second place, and then it was a 1v1, which of course he executed to perfection right there. A great elimination to close out the game, and a really, really solidly played high ground play with mats to spare at the end as well, which is very, very impressive game management right there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And it's nice to see kind of a turn for some of these players like Curex, like Jivy, being able to make it into these final moments. We know them as extremely talented players and haven't gotten to seeing that talent fully showcased here in the tournament thus far. But now in game number 3, we see it. We see Jivy getting those nice eliminations from the low ground, holding on in those final moments. And that's what we're excited for. We're excited to see these players showcase in a special way because they are so talented. For being able to get to this point and play as hard and as well as they are, it's nice to be able to showcase the talent that we have here. So super excited to be able to do that there after game number 3. But it's time to jump into a quick break. Once we get back, we got those leaderboards for you, and we'll hop into game number 4. But until then, go grab yourself a drink. We'll be right back. We're back, everybody. Halfway through the games here for the Play versus Finals solo event here for the high school players, featuring, you already guessed it, Fortnite. Life with Panda here with Mini Miner. We're going to break down these standings here for you. We already have them ready, good to go. You already know we're picking up the pace. We're speeding it down for you. And it is Snazadon able to now claim first place with that victory royale.
Yeah, really great first place in that previous game. Of course, getting into that first place spot overall as well. It's definitely not all over, though. It's very, very close to seeing Bacon, XO, Tree, and Seek, and of course, RBZ as well, and GV all in the same sort of points vicinity. So it's going to be very, very close going into game number 4 right now. It's going to be close. It's all to play for, and it's definitely not over yet.
It's definitely not over yet. And like I talked about moments ago, Jivy was that player that I wanted to see do well. Now finally climbing into the top 10 of the leaderboard is going to be super important, but it is time. Game number 4 is underway. We're in the battle bus. Snazadon looks like going in that Coral Castle region of the map, potentially even landing where the crash site is. And then you have Reciprocal landing up just above here in this little shack right outside of Stealthy and Craggy. So both great solo landing spots this season, but I'm interested to see how they use them.
Yeah, we're really seeing both sides of the spectrum right now. We're seeing Snazadon going for a little bit more of a sort of bigger, maybe more contested POI, but we're seeing Reciprocal right now going for a smaller, maybe a little bit less loot concentrated POI. So we're seeing Snazadon on the screen just making himself aware of all the mats that are obviously available here, making sure he has all those hard mats. I think getting those hard mats in your inventory early on is so crucial, because you can't necessarily find them as commonly as you can maybe wood or brick, especially this season with the amount of brick that you can find at these corrupted areas. Getting this metal right off the bat is such a crucial element of the game. If you're having these early game engagements, which Snazadon could be about to right now, struggling to build right there, as well as he's sort of situated inside a plane wing right now, as he is managing to get his heels off just from the fire all the way at Coral Castle. There looks to be 2 players there as well, so really, really great idea to farm all that metal. Now we're seeing Reciprocal all the way to the northern side of the map in this engagement. Only about 4 chests on this island, so definitely not too much loot to play with, but it looks as though Reciprocal has got the loot luck this time. He's got that purple assault rifle, of course, but his shields, he doesn't have the shields, which maybe could be why he's leaving this engagement. What he doesn't know is, though, there's another player lurking nearby, so he'll either want to get out of this fight quickly or maybe just try and finish it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. You want to make sure that you're kind of finishing these early game engagements quick, but looking at Reciprocal, look where he's rotating on the map. You actually see there's another player here. It is Big Boy Clouded just above, getting nice tags off, and is all in his favor. Reciprocal now on the back foot, having to make something happen. Neither is going to be able to do it. Both have maybe 1-2 weapons in the inventory, so not much to work with. Coming through, and there it is. Big Boy Clouded able to get the elimination under Reciprocal so fast, and that is what you want to see. That is the early engagement that they needed. It had to take place quickly if these players wanted to continue with their game.
Yeah, that was really great from Clouded right there, of course. We're seeing Fitzo right there just on the other side. So I think I think he's hiding in the trash can right there, which is definitely not a strategy I've seen too often right now. But a really, really, great strategy from Fixio. He does jump out as well. Clouded would have held that, but he does. He gets a great 70 tag on Fixio. Now he's on the back foot. Now Clouded can try and come and clear up this whole area for himself. He's got himself that refresh that he got from Reciprocal. So this is going to be a crucial little fight for both of these players. Who's going to come out on top? It looks as though Fixio does have himself some very good loot, but of course the material count not looking too good either. They both want to try and take control of this fight and make sure that it doesn't last too long. It looks as though Fixito tries to get a shot off, but once again it's Clouded coming out on top right here, he's sort of rotating a little bit later and gets those eliminations, and now he has a great loadout.
I mean, look, when you get some nice tags off onto Reciprocal super early, and then you're able to pick up an epic assault rifle, like it just doesn't get much better than that. So definitely props to him for being able to clean that up rather quickly and now rotate. But just right around the corner, actually, from where Big Boy Clouded is at, it's Blood trying to loot up here, but contested in Craggy Cliffs. So if they're not careful, we could see Big Boy Clouded rotating right on top of him.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be rotating around there. He's definitely going to be on top right now. Of course, he's got himself 2 eliminations early on. Now, Zimtix right now having to try and rotate his way out of this area. Understands the danger of having multiple players in that smaller area. He does have the loot to fight, of course, and maybe the materials to have a sort of short early game engagement, but definitely not going to be viable loot to take into the end game. He's going to want to try and get as much as he can. But of course, now this vehicle right now not looking too healthy in terms of, well, health or indeed wheel count. It looks as though he's only got 3 of them, but managing to go by with that right now just about. It looks as though he has a launch pad, of course, as well, so a very useful item to have in the inventory, especially if you are trying to escape in the nature that he is. We're looking at Berserk right now, heading on over to the Steamy Stacks area. Berserk winning a reboot round with his trio in last season's FNCS, so a proven winner. He knows how to win games, so this is definitely a really good situation for him. He can get that Storm Surge off as well, and definitely with his experience of winning games, he'll definitely know how to navigate these early game fights.
Yeah, and that's what it's about, navigating those early game engagements that ultimately have to be the ones that are well thought out, methodical, and quickly taken, because you cannot afford to spend too much time here, and that's what we see here. Strikes realizes that, completely dives in there, takes some nice shots, gets the cone in the box, potentially even coning the player. He does, and now the player is all kinds of unsorted as Strikes able to pick up the elimination there onto Berserk. Definitely an unfortunate scenario there for Berserk. Berserk had a really solid start here in game number 1, and even quite a decent job in game number 2, but now in match number 4, struggling a little bit, falling very early here to Strikes. But there are more players in this space, so Strikes could continue to be on the hunt, but no, actually chooses the stacks to just begin rotating. And honestly, good play on their part.
Yeah, I think so. That's a really great benefit of having Steamy Stacks right there, because not only you can rotate into zone, but of course, if you are a little bit sort of on the back foot in an early game engagement, then if you can buy yourself some time to use one of those stacks, you can get yourself far away from that area nice and quickly. It looks as though Hydra right now is trying to get himself into the box of another player, trying to get as much of that piece control as he can. It's Palasty on the other end of it. We've seen Palasty in plenty of end games, and maybe going into this end game or into this game trying to sort of replicate that success that he's had so far in the end games in today's cup. I mean, he came second in game number 2, so Palasty definitely knows how important those placement points are and how valuable they really are. Hydra, on the other hand, doesn't seem to be having quite as much success. He hasn't quite made enough of the end games, definitely hasn't picked up enough eliminations to get himself into the higher stages of the leaderboard. Only 2 points to his name right now, but things can definitely turn a little bit brighter for him if he can clutch up right here.
Yeah, they definitely can, and the shift in all of this could be everything that Hydratix needs to continue on. You see, only a couple points here is not a lot to work with for this player, so they're going to have to make something happen if they want to come back here in this tournament, because there's not too much left. We're at the halfway mark, so these are the final moments to make some things happen. And for Hydratix, even though you're aggressive, you seem to be struggling a little bit. So now it's about taking this fight pretty quickly, is healthy and able to try and take this fight. But no, as I say that, exchanges shield and now has to go on the back foot, heal up a little bit. And it's actually Palasty under there. Palasty being one of those players we saw on the high ground and do very well from the high ground. So I don't know. This is going to be tough to watch as this continues to ensue here in the Storm.
And there seems to be another player making their way on over as well. So this fight is definitely not over. There could be another member of the fight just making his way in, of course, as well. Yeah, we can see the effects of that happening right now. The third-party engagement. This could be an opportunity for Palasty to run away, which he does take that opportunity very well. Hydra, though, of course, we saw him down on points, so maybe he is going to be a little bit more aggressive. I kind of admire the aggression, being a little bit more proactive with getting eliminations and making sure that he can clutch up in this game. If he wants to get himself into the highest stages of the leaderboard, getting those eliminations combined with the placement is going to be so important. But that is so crucial as well, that placement aspect of the scoring system. He can't forget that, and he wants to make sure that he gets himself into the Storm without too much HP being lost, because he only has 9 bandages, which will last for a little bit, but I think when the Storm starts ticking for 2, he might have problems.
Yeah, exactly. The way the Storm works, you just can't find yourself in it. You can't afford to take that damage, especially in solos. I think people underestimate how little you have to work with here in solo games when you compare it to something like trios, which we'll get to see some of that action tomorrow there for the college players. But what it boils down to is, as a solo player, you can only carry so much. Whereas in trios, you have about 9 slots to work with, as far as like 6 to 9 slots to work with as far as heals go. So in solos, you only have 3. It's your inventory alone. So you kind of have to be patient. You have to make sure you position yourself well. And above all else, you have to avoid taking unnecessary damage. And one of those examples of unnecessary damage, finding yourself in Storm.
Yeah, finding yourself in Storm is definitely a difficult situation. Another person that's on a difficult situation right now is Dunking, of course, on the back foot. It looks as though Tony is the player that is sort of down below, battling it out, making sure that he heals himself up very well as well. I think that's something that is definitely a very, very good strategy, of course, because a lot of players might just be a little bit over-aggressive and not pop those big pots to get themselves to max HP. But I tell you what, Tony is making sure that the other player is not going to be max HP. But no! Wow, what a turning point right there. The tables turned so quickly in that engagement. I thought Duncan was down and out, but Tony, I mean, that was unbelievable. He got a great beam off with that SMG, but it looks as though Duncan had other ideas, picking up that elimination. Wow, that was a really, really crazy engagement. I mean, he sort of hopped in the box. I talked about patience, and then it all went out the window.
Yeah, you know, you definitely tend to see that sometimes where players feel pretty confident, especially when it comes to their SMG aim, and they just kind of spray in. But when you have a player that is seasoned and understands how to handle engagements like that, that's the result. You saw the patience come out of that other player, and ultimately that 50-50 did not turn in Tony's favor. So back to the lobby with him, and now back to the focus here on Solnata. This is a player we didn't get to see too much from as of right now, but now we're seeing it here. 463 damage above that threshold there, but Storm Surge no longer a factor as Don's World actually takes out Zai there in the elimination feed. So Solnata now just gets to rotate. Says, you know what? My truck's got a little bit of health on it. I'll just take it and keep going.
Yep, gets a nice little replacement truck there, of course, as well. As soon as one of the tires on these vehicles do get destroyed, of course, it does start losing HP. So you definitely want to be in as much of a healthy vehicle as possible, because not only would you sort of get focused by a lot of the other players, but of course, the long-lasting ability of these vehicles. As we're seeing Dawn right here using that very well. He's boxed that vehicle into the end game. So I think this is an important little rotation device that a lot of these players will use. If you can get a healthy car going into maybe half and half zone, or even the first moving, I've seen some players use them. It can definitely save you some mats, save you a launch pad, and potentially, especially at the later stages of the game, it might save you getting focused, because I feel like at that stage of the game, a lot of players won't be necessarily using all their ammo to sort of tunnel vision and shoot a car. So I think this is definitely a good strategy for Dawn right now. As you can see, a lot of players boxing up around him. It looks as though it's going to be a sort of northwesterly zone right now, as a lot of players do seem to be boxing up on this mountainous area just outside of Believer Beach. Plenty of materials to refarm in there, of course, if someone does decide to box up in there. We're seeing Oxy right there, of course, as well, refarming those little bit of brick areas. And Dawn is sitting pretty in that little box right there. I'll tell you who isn't sitting pretty, though. It is the player on the receiving end of Aoxy's AR shots right there. It was DreamX who was on the receiving end. That was a tough little engagement for him, and also a tough one for Aoxy, as it looks as though he was getting sprayed from all kinds of angles. So he's going to be able to get this refresh, I think, but that was a little bit of a risky one right there. He's going to be able to full heal, of course, as well, but a really great elimination for Aoxy, but it didn't come without its risks right there.
Yeah, definitely didn't come out without the risks, but still walks away with the reward there with that one elimination on the board here, and everything they possibly could need as far as heals go. So really solid play. It kind of worked out in their favor, despite the aggression potentially resulting in them going back to the lobby. But we know Aoxy. Aoxy, a very, very talented player in itself, but now it's all about XO. XO trying to show us that they have what it takes to be aggressive and get some eliminations. But as we say that, actually ends up getting tagged up from the distance, and there it is. The shotgun shot comes out. It's actually Curix that's like, no, get out of my box. You're going back to the lobby. I'm done with this.
Yeah, he was done with it, and he proved it. I mean, that was a very, very tough engagement for both of those players to take, of course. Getting the fire, the return fire from other areas. Of course, you don't want to be the focus of many different players. Now, Curix right here looks as though he's maximum materials. He's got a vehicle as well to use to rotate in, which could, of course, get him focused by a lot of the lobby as well. But I think it's a really, really great idea to rotate in using this. He has plenty of loot to make his way into the end game. He doesn't have to waste the launch pad at this stage. We're still in the early stages of the game, especially the end game as well. So he's gonna be able to go for a nice little uncontested side rotate right now. So no players on the castle area. It looks as though they've all sort of gone away from that and sort of left that area as Curix going into this end game with 1 elimination and plenty of loot. Speaking of plenty of loot, Replex, of course, as well, right now looking very, very good on loot as well. Maybe the ammo could be increased with a little potential refresh, but he has got that all-important harpoon, which we talked about earlier. How important that is for picking up refreshes. It means you don't have to commit yourself to someone's box. You don't have to run in the open to pick up a refresh. I think it's 35 meters away that these harpoons can be functional from. So if you get yourself close enough to a refresh, it doesn't even have to be your elimination. It can definitely make your loot start to look a little bit better. I mean, I think he needs it as well. His material count is not looking too good. The heals are looking good, but with only 3 shots left in that harpoon, he has to be very, very careful about how he uses that.
I mean, you're not wrong. I think another harpoon is definitely going to be in the near future there, as only 3 shots remain. It's kind of tough to work with, to be honest. Harpoon's such a vital role here in solos, and having it in the inventory is such a huge advantage to have. But with only 3 left, you kind of have to choose wisely. Are you going to use it to get into somebody's box? Are you going to use it to refresh a material? That's the question we're going to see answered here as this game continues on. But with so many big names like Curix, like Briri, like Palesty still left here in game number 4, it's tough to call who could end up coming out on top.
Yeah, it really is. We're really still in the earlier stages of this end game, and so I talked about earlier on the usage, the ability, the potential of this harpoon. Hydra has to be very, very careful, though. Of course, you are very static when you are using that harpoon. There's not too much ability for movement, and of course, that animation does make it so that you can't shoot or use any guns for a certain period of time. So he has to be very, very careful, especially when his builds are open like that. He could get sprayed from other angles, which it looks as though he does. There's a player above him. It's Prudus right there, who does seem to have made his way to yet another endgame, which is very, very solid from him. But Hydra really trying to go for this refresh right now. You can tell he wants it. He doesn't want anyone else to have it. And Hollow thinks, I think I might have this, you know. I think I might pick this up for myself. But I think Hydra has other ideas. It's not picking up for him right now, though. He's got to make sure not to tunnel vision that, of course, as well, making sure that he doesn't just focus on that. And Rex, unfortunately, will be focusing on making his way back to the lobby as Poopid right there, coming out on top in that particular engagement. And look at that loot. He can really reap the rewards of that fantastic elimination. He's got the heals, he's got the loot, and more importantly, he has the mats to make his way through the end game, which I don't think he had before.
Yeah, definitely a necessary refresh there for CH here, but looking at the way this is going to continue to play out, I think he has to go. He's going to have to rotate pretty quickly. Palesty actually in the direction in which that they have to rotate, so it's going to be a tough rotation without using that material that they just ended up picking up. And Palesty actually identifies that and sees that that's happening, but decides to rotate. But as oh my gosh, what did I just watch? Palesty instantly getting deleted there by several players, and it's actually CH who ended up picking up that elimination. So despite the patience there from Palesty in deciding not to shoot at CH says, nah, I don't care, I'm gonna shoot at you.
Yeah, that was a very, very brave play right there. Of course, I mean, that was crazy. That just shows how important it is to get yourselves into zone early, especially when your zone rotates towards players that are already situated, especially on high ground, because all it takes is 1, 2, 3, or 4 players to be turning their focus to you. And as you saw, you can get eliminated very, very quickly, especially with some well-placed, especially headshots right there. We're seeing Poopid right there going down in the elimination feed, so his game is now over as well. He slowly tries to make his game last even longer with trying to find some more eliminations to move his way up the leaderboard. We're seeing this player right now finding himself underneath a player that has been eliminated by another player on other angles. Lots of players are going to try and get this loot. It looks like this player gets a fantastic headshot and a great body shot to follow it up with. So he not only gets the loot from the player that got eliminated above him, but he gets to reap the rewards of his own work as well. Frutus going down, getting himself that refresh right there, this player right now. So he's got himself plenty of mats, and of course he has that zone advantage. So you're going to see him tarping his way into the zone, making use of all those materials, but crucially, he can go back, get the refresh, and act like it never happened. He hasn't even built anything. He has max materials, and he's very, very happy with how that situation has unfolded for him. 1,000 above the Storm Surge nearly, so that's crucial for him.
That is crucial. I mean, that's the comfort level you want, right? When you're playing this part of the end game, you want to worry about what's going on around you. You don't want to worry about Storm Surge. Unfortunately for them, they're going to be able to worry about that. They're going to be able to worry about getting those eliminations, not because they have to because of Surge, but because they want to because of points. So definitely a nice change there. But Snazadon, one of our Victory Royale keepers, actually, if I'm not mistaken, our first place champ as of right now going into this game, still alive, and with one elimination on the board is going to rotate here pretty early. This is a tough zone to watch here. These water zones, while you can effectively build on them across the board, is still kind of rough to work around in, especially if it starts to pull towards any of those elevation differences like we see in Coral Castle, or towards the hills where the castle is. So ultimately, it's going to be a bit of a weird zone here for these players, but these veterans know how to handle this stuff, and we see them handling it quite fine so far. Now, for players like Riri, they have the inventory that they need. They don't really have any kind of pressure weapon in the inventory, but that's fine because that legendary charged shotgun makes up for it. The moment another player hears the hiss from that bad boy, they know they got to back up from the wall.
Yeah, that's definitely true. It's not only the high damage potential, I believe 220 damage to the head with that weapon. It also has that scare factor, as you mentioned, of course. There are players that will be looking to get inside of that player's box, but Freewee's going to be charging up that shotgun and just letting them know, giving them that audio cue to make sure that, actually, guys, I don't think it's worth it trying to hop in my box because I can hit you with some very big damage if you do take that risk. So I think that could also save him some materials as well going into this endgame, as we see so many players opting to use that launch pad. GV's pad unfortunately failing for him. So does Blah right there, unfortunately failing. We're seeing so many, almost the entire lobby going for a launch pad play right now. As of course you don't want to waste those materials. We're seeing Dash right there going down or through the water in the bottom side of the map right there as well, which is another rotation option that these water zones offer. Of course, that does have its advantages as well, especially if you are low on materials. You can sort of swim below, but it looks as though the zone has pulled all the way back to dry land. So back to normal for a lot of these players right now. These guys know how to play this. It's very much more common than the water zones, and the Conman trying to take advantage of that right now as he does get himself ahead of zone, getting pressured from lots of different angles though, but he does have those chilly chug splashes, which could be a really, really viable way of getting into zone.
They definitely could be, but the problem is, when will you use it? You kind of have to utilize them effectively here. These final moments is actually the best time to use them. But the last thing you want to do is actually go down with those in your inventory. So making sure that players like Sin use those effectively here is going to be super important, especially considering Sin only has 7 points on the board right now. So not too much happening here in the early game. So now trying to make up for it in the second half. And these chilly chug splashes could be a big factor in how they make up for it.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, he only has 6 bills to his name as well, so he's definitely going to be sort of crouching and sneaking around that low ground area to try and look for any stragglers in the storm, as we saw GV do so well in the previous game. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he pulls off that. Of course, we're seeing Hollow once again all the way up on high. He seems quite happy there all the way up on high ground, but this is what I talked about. A lot of players can use this water to rotate in, or indeed using these old builds as the zone does pull all the way back to the water. So we're seeing Dash right now trying to pick up as many materials as possible. Only got 2 bills for his name. Sees an opportunity for a spray, but so does someone else who does see the opportunity to spray in on that player right there. It looks as though Dash does go down in the feed as well. Dash falling victim to that spray once again. Now Hollow is falling victim to plenty of players that are going up to high ground. Then it's not safe. High ground is definitely not safe, especially when you don't have the materials. He's almost wasted all of his materials now going up for high ground, and he's got to try and survive on 10 white HP, 50 shield, and 0 bills, Fender.
Yeah, this is a rough spot to find yourself in. Listen, if you don't have the material, don't go for high ground. It's just a waste of material at that point, because if you don't have it, you can't maintain it. Even look at the con man who has high ground right now in one build. He can't get down.
Yep.
He's gonna have to try to focus towards the water here a little bit. But now that the way that these players have built off, he actually ends up dropping and almost going down to fall damage, but he still survives here. That's actually kind of impressive, the way that he was able to kind of pick that off there with those builds and recycle through it. But will he be able to hold on? He actually gets the elimination there onto Snazdadon, our last game champion. And then looking at it here, he's got now 2 builds. That's it. If any of these players begin to look up, they can easily bring him down.
No.
And just like that, it is over. The con man has gone down. His 2 builds were just not enough there to waterfall, but fortunately for some of these other players, they're going to be able to kind of pick up off that. One more player down in these final moments of this game. That means more likely that these players will be able to walk out on top, especially for players like Consolbot, who had the high ground there for a moment. And that actually looks like he's going to go back into zone here a little bit and try to spray out this player who had it, but takes fall damage. Actually, as he drops down, now just trying to exchange here. He actually gets another elimination there, a vital elimination at that. And here it is. Shots are firing in, exchanges go, but no, it's not going to be enough. Consolbot goes down. City gets the victory royale with 2 beautiful eliminations there in the end game.
Yeah, once again, we're seeing City going up to take the high ground. That late high ground retake, once again, proving to be such a vital element of getting that victory round. We saw so many players there going up for high ground a little bit too early, a little bit prematurely, maybe, because, of course, they didn't have the materials to hold it. I think there was 1, 2, maybe 3 players that we saw going up for high ground and then simply running out of materials. The con man going down to fall damage, but, of course, we saw a really, really great play right there from the Game 4 winner. So, such a great elimination to win it as well. So winning on high ground, always great to see, and really managed it well. Once again, going for that high ground later and saving those materials in the earlier stages of the game, going into the final 2 games. It really does make it exciting.
It really does. But again, public service announcement for Conman and others, you got to be careful. When you go for high ground, if you don't have the material, it's just not going to work out in your favor. We saw it there. We've seen it time and time again, but it's okay, because players like City, who are going to play their layer appropriately, they're going to take that victory royale from you. So congrats there to City. Consolbot, congrats as well on getting that 2nd place and hopefully climbing the leaderboard here as we go in. But it's time for a quick break, so make sure to stick around and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to the Play Versus featuring Fortnite. It's the finals for the high school track here, and it's been pretty impressive. These solo players have shown us that they have what it takes to do some major things. So we're going to dive straight into the leaderboard here and see what has shifted after game number 4. And there it is. Snazadon still finds himself at the top there with 75 points. Second place being ConsoleBot, who actually took second place in that game, now has 68 points. So a huge game number 4 from ConsoleBot, which turns the tide there for him. But Curex not too far behind, only 4 points behind with 64 points. So this is definitely a pretty stacked top 10. But Jivy still slowly climbing that leaderboard as well. So many names that we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so many names need to keep an eye on indeed. I mean, we're seeing a very, very close top 10 right there. Maybe apart from Snazadon, it's all very, very close. We're seeing maybe a few points in it between 10th and 4th. So it's all to play for going into these last 2 games today. We saw the comment right there, of course, though, in that previous game, dominating high ground up until that unfortunate moment that he got shot down and eliminated to full damage. But that just shows how important that high ground is. We're seeing Palestine, of course, another player that we saw on high ground plenty of times during today's tournament. Couldn't quite match that in the previous game, but Palastine's done very well as well. And as I said, it's all to play for. There's still very, very few points between a lot of these players. So a few eliminations, a few more placement points, maybe another couple of victory royales going on here for some of the players that are a little bit lower could be the difference, because it's definitely not over yet.
It definitely is not over yet. With 2 games remaining, there's still so much Fortnite to be played. With that victory royale being worth 30 points in itself, all it takes is a VR for it to turn around for a lot of people. That's what we saw there for ConsoleBot, and that's what we're going to see here as we get ready for game number 5. Let's go ahead, jump into the battle bus. Beep, beep, we're in it, and it's starting off with New Blair and Sun.
Yep, New Blair and Sun right here looking to be on top again of spawn. It looks like New Blair does seem to have this area uncontested, of course, as well. We're seeing a nice little split of the battle bus right through the middle of the map, south to north. So no complaints really from anyone about this one, I'm sure. But it's going to be an interesting little off-spawn engagement, because now everyone's given a fair chance at their drop spot. So will we see maybe some earlier engagements that are happening from people just outside of their drop spots? We're seeing 2 players right here that are quite close to one another on the right side of your screen. We're seeing Nublar, of course, and Sun. These guys sort of dominating this lower section of the area. Unfortunately, though, Nublar not quite getting a shotgun yet, so he's going to have to try and farm one of those. But, of course, he is uncontested for the most part. There is a player, actually, though, to his west. Not sure if he knows about that, if someone has maybe switched up their strategy to land there, but they're landing at one of those IO guard bases. I talked about them earlier. Plenty of loot potential there as well. Of course, you get those IO chests as well to potentially get yourself some good loot. Now, though, we're hopping on over to the battles at Misty Meadows. Once again, we seem to be seeing a lot of battles going on here, of course, including the likes of XO, who is going back and forth with this other player right now. He has got solid loot to close out this fight and close out this engagement if he does want to. Of course, this player right here has been pretty consistent so far. 53 points to his name, so he's definitely in the mix up the top of the leaderboard. Maybe he doesn't want to take this engagement. Maybe he does, because, of course, knowing those elimination points is so important. Getting those eliminations early on when players haven't got the loot, they haven't got the mats to fight. It's almost a little bit more easy to get the eliminations for players like XO.
Yeah, XO actually finds himself going into this game in 7th place, so needs to stay alive here as Hydratix is just pressuring his walls here. It looks like even with the harpoon, trying to make something happen, that was definitely a risky play there from XO. If he had just gotten the wrong angle, Hydratix could have gotten the harpoon shot onto him, and that would have been a huge 75 damage there and a pull towards him in that moment. So definitely have to make sure you're taking this fight accordingly. Fortunately, though, the shots are going to come out trying to pre-fire. Nothing's going to connect, but XO just says, you know what, I got to stop for a moment. Let me heal up. Hydratix now trying to make something happen. And I was actually interested. I thought potentially XO was going to go for a bit of a jump shot there as Hydratix tried to come around, but he didn't. He stays patient. He stays on the back foot, which I find interesting because he's got a bit of a health advantage. Well, until that moment, as Hydratix gets a nice tag there. So now both are still alive. Shots are exchanging. It's not going to be enough. XO finds himself falling in one of the most crucial games here in the tournament for him.
Yeah, that's a crucial moment for EXO, of course, going down to a player that doesn't have quite as many points as him. EXO going to this game in 7th place, so he was definitely in the mix to getting into that top 3 or even that top spot, so he's going to be very, very disappointed with that. Of course, there is still one game to go, but you need to make sure that you can carry yourself into a good last game with a solid game 5 as well. As we're seeing, Blaze right now hasn't quite been able to have the success today, hasn't unfortunately been able to pick up too many points to his name, so not too great for him. But looks as though he has got some decent enough loot to fight, but he opts for the rotation out of their strategy instead. Now we see Salada, of course, getting himself into a sticky situation at Craggy Cliffs. Often seems to be lots of battles going on here, especially in solos. We're seeing so many of these players opting to land here and getting these fights off spawn, so he's going to try and use this green pump to his advantage, get a heal off, of course, as well, so this other player cannot take him out as quickly. Manages to get both minis off, though, of course, which is so crucial. He does have the chug splashes as well, which can, of course, be healed very, very quickly. They're very, very quick to use, but as we can see, there's plenty of players that are sort of lurking around on the mountain, so they have to be careful with how this fight, how long this fight takes, and how this fight is going to be played out. Not too sure who it is on the other end of things, but it looks as though Solnada is just being a little bit cautious of that high ground, that mountain. As I talked about just then, there are plenty of players that will rotate over there, look for those free Storm Surge tags, and it looks as though the Twitch player right there was looking for that, and I think he's just disengaging as well. So Solnada right now being a little bit more cautious, the low material count definitely having a part to play in that, but he can definitely win this fight.
He definitely can, though, and as he gets dropped down, shots exchange is not enough. Solnado goes down and blood F in. Ends up getting the elimination there and puts the first 2 points on the board for him. So that's what you kind of want in that situation. You haven't been able to do much in the tournament thus far, so now it's kind of turning here. Turning point for you. You now can put a few more points here on the board, but the game continues. Tree still up here in this game, and looking at what Tree's been able to do thus far has been impressive. Tree has been one of those top 10 players since the beginning of all of this. So he finds himself actually right now going into this game in 8th place, which is probably the lowest place since the tournament has started. However, there's still much potential here for him to climb.
Yeah, definitely. He's in 8th place right now. He had a really, really good start to the tournament with a great 2nd place finish in game 1 and a great 7th place finish in game 2, but hasn't quite been able to replicate that success in game number 4. So hopefully for him, these last 2 games will be able to sort of recoup that success and really try and clutch up in these final 2 games, because he hasn't had the best last 2 games, which I think he needs to bring himself to get his confidence back, to get on that momentum, that good momentum that he had right at the beginning. And I think he sees this as a potential early elimination, a real confidence booster going into the penultimate game here. So this is going to be an interesting battle for him to take, and I think he understands how important placement is. So yeah, he is going to disengage. Of course, last game he had 59th place, and the game before he got 64th, so wasn't quite being able to replicate that top 10 success in the first 2 games. He really does need to look at that and I think address it, which is what he's doing right now, making sure he gets to that top 10 in the end and making sure he gets some eliminations as well, as we see Blades getting into another engagement right here.
Yeah, and here it is, Blades trying to make something happen here. It looks to be taking this engagement pretty quickly. You've seen Blades actually been taking engagement since the start here of the match, but not being able to kind of close out on anything quite yet. It's actually Don's World on the opposite side here. Don's World, a veteran in the space, knows how to handle these fights accordingly, and that's why you see him getting dropped out there, immediately building a wall. Blades still on the back foot, trying to heal up here as much as possible. Don's World does have the wall, though, is going to continue to pressure on and looks to try and break in here. But now, as I say, at the shots exchange, and Don World potentially on the back foot here a little bit, does need to heal up because only has 91 available health. But there it is, nice shots exchange. It's still not enough to secure this fight or in this fight as quickly as they would like. And there it is, nice little quick heals, and bam, the shot comes out. Blades extremely weak. Don's World just trying to make something happen despite all of this continued movement. And there it is, the final cleanup of the engagement. Don's World getting the elimination onto Blades and keeps the game moving.
Yeah, I think he did really, really well there. That was a really, really experienced play from Dawns. We've seen him do that so often in previous tournaments. Haven't quite been able to have that success today, but that just showed pure class, pure experience, just to make sure that he didn't necessarily need to heal up. He had the ability and the confidence to go for those reverse and those return shots nice and early on. I think he was a mere like 60 HP, maybe even less, going into those shots. So he picked up the damage on the other player, which put them on the back foot and showed his experience. That was really, really great from him. Now we're hopping on over to Lando right here, who does pick himself up on elimination. But no, there's a boat coming on in, I believe, as well. It's Clouded, who does take a shot with one of those boat rockets, but thinks, nope, I don't think it's worth it. The storm is coming, and Lando understands that as well. So he's going to be able to utilize these heals right next to him right now. If he can try and make his way into the storm as well, we see Springs utilizing a vehicle to make his way in there, and he has actually got 2 spicy fish right there. Haven't seen too many of those in play recently, but a really, really great device for rotating. Of course, it has the same effects as the pepper. It also heals you for 15 HP, white HP, which is a lot more than the pepper can offer. And of course, you can stack 3 of them. So a really, really great way to rotate, particularly in the later stages of the game. So I think Lando's going to be definitely using those in the later stages and saving them very well as well. So a really great idea from him, but he's going to make his way into zone now. This is an important stage because there could be players lurking on the outside of zone, and at this stage, if you do get focused, you really don't want to be on the receiving end of that.
You definitely don't. And that's why you see Dream just kind of patiently taking this. Doesn't want to overextend here at all. Lurknada, though, very aggressive player, gets a nice 102 tag there onto the player. Now on the back foot, you see Lurknada just trying to take advantage of it. Wall after wall, build after build, shot after shot, but nothing is able to finish this as another player enters the fight. Lurknada now editing out, trying to potentially box away just slightly, gather some intel, even refresh on the material a little bit, and then get back into this fight. Knowing that there's other players here that are close by is crucial, because you don't want to find yourself getting caught out by the third-party situation that we've seen way too often.
Yeah, you're right. It happens way too often, particularly in these sort of mountainous areas where you could see a lot of people that are already situated, they're already boxed up on the high ground. They're just looking for that storm surge a little bit earlier on, because a lot of those players that are in that situation, maybe they haven't got those eliminations, so they have to force themselves to look at getting some early tags, especially in solos where you might not be able to find a particular person to focus because there's so many other teams and individual players, of course, that are involved. We're seeing Strikes right here, though, fighting it out just next to this gas station in the corner of the map. We're seeing Cloudsy on the receiving end of this as Strikes tries to get another strike in his locker right here. Of course, he does have himself that one elimination, so he's already proved his worth in this game, and he definitely needs to, of course. Not looking too good on the points front now, as Cloudsy right here does manage to pad away, and it looks as though Strikes is going to chase that. He understands that Cloudsy is very, very weak, so he's got to make sure to close out this elimination without getting too tunnel vision here, because of course there are players looming nearby. They're lurking, they're waiting for something like this, an opportunity to pick up some early Storm Surge tags and maybe even that elimination as well. So I think it's a smart play right there, making sure to rotate into zone. He's already 400 above the Storm Surge threshold right there, so very smart play from Strikes, not taking that engagement. He does have the loot to take engagements if he does see fit, but I think right now he just wants to prioritize positioning right now.
Yeah, definitely have to agree. I think smart play. That's the kind of insight you want to see from a Fortnite player, especially in solos. You don't want to overextend. You don't have to. You want to take engagements when you know that you're going to be the victor. Like it really is one of those situations where you look at your possibilities, right? Everybody could fight everybody in a game of Fortnite. However, these players are smart enough to know that they're not always going to win. So only take the fights that you know you can win, and only put yourself in the situations that are going to better your tournament. And that's how you stay consistent. But for players like Peachy here, looking to get some eliminations and kind of pick up on the leaderboard. We actually haven't seen too much from Peachy here in the tournament today, but that doesn't mean they don't have an opportunity here to continue to climb.
Yeah, really great elimination right there, getting themselves some loot, of course, as well. Their situation is looking pretty peachy right now, I have to say. They're definitely in a very nice position, a very nice situation. They can refarm all of this brick and metal right here as well in surrounding areas, so his material count is definitely going to be looking very good. Going to be very, very careful with this boat, of course, because you are very exposed. You're right in the center. The boats can be heard from almost seemingly miles away, so especially when you're on this low ground area, plenty of hills nearby, he's got to be very, very careful to rotate his way in very, very cautiously, because players like this can focus and focus, and that's Rap right there, who does seem to be on the receiving end of the focus right now. Almost a sort of switcheroo right there between the both of them, and Rap gets the elimination. Both players were so weak, and that was a great elimination on Genetic right there. What a shot with that legendary pump shotgun.
What a turn. Rap seemingly at the point of no return. Didn't look like they were going to be able to win that engagement, but sure enough, in the final moments, that legendary pump shotgun, it turned the fight. Obviously, the best power weapon in the game at this moment, the legendary pump shotgun, provides some pretty big comeback opportunities, and that's what we just saw there for Rap.
Yeah, that was really great. Of course, having that pump shotgun in your inventory is such a confidence boost. It gives you so many more options. Unfortunately for Tony, not quite as lucky. He does seem to be left with the common pump shotgun. He does, of course, have that upgraded epic assault rifle as well, so he can definitely do some damage from range, but I think that's the way he'll want to try and dictate those fights. A little bit further away if he does need to try and pick up another elimination. We saw Strikes on the front foot earlier. Now he's on the back foot to Prudus, and now Prudus, of course, a very, very talented player getting to the end game. He knows how important those end game placement points are. Of course, now we're looking at him being aggressive against Strikes, and now Strike has got to be very, very careful, because he does get cracked once again, down to about 30 HP as Prudus continues applying the non-stop pressure, the unrelenting pressure from Prudus, and I think he's going to close out this elimination. The fight is going on so high up, though. Almost a lot of the players will be looking at this, looking over potential for maybe getting shot down, but of course getting the Storm Surge as well. So Prudus right now and Strikes, they both have to be careful, because even if they win this fight, they might have some situations to deal with afterwards.
Yeah, definitely situations you don't want to find yourself in. I think these players know that a lot's still left in this game, and they cannot afford to make poor decisions. But for Prudus overextending a little bit too much, no material left, and it's all kind of downhill here with only 22 HP to work with. And there it is, a nice cleanup of the elimination. I'm honestly surprised that Strikes ended up going down there, but Prudus now able to clean that up, has a launch pad, has med kits to work with, so much in the inventory to do. Now it's all about making your way into a nice position in zone, because this is the third zone. Remember, we talked about it before. In this zone, it's all about positioning yourself smack dab in the middle if you want to guarantee yourself the fourth zone. So will Prudus try to go as far center as possible, or will they end up getting stuck out on the edge? That's the question.
That is the question. We're going to be finding out the answer to that very, very shortly. Of course, I think they're going to have to stay out on the edge. Of course, they only had 10 builds to their name as well, which, contrary to Killsy's right now, who does seem to have managed his materials very, very well. Looks as though Fallen is on the other end of the battle that he's trying to take right now. I think he understands that he might need to take some shots right here. Not too sure what his Storm Surge situation is looking like, but with 0 eliminations to his name right now, he definitely has to look for something, and that's what you can see him doing. Using this cone very effectively, peeking through, making sure that he can see through all of the areas and making sure that he's understanding where the players are, because when this next zone pops up in about 3 seconds, we're going to see where these players are going to have to rotate next, and more importantly, Killsy's is definitely going to be seeing this in his vision. He's going to be able to see where these players are going to have to rotate and then use that to his advantage. He's going to think, okay, there's a player that's right to the north right there. He has to rotate south, so maybe I can look for some shots right there. I believe it's the is it the player next to him? Yeah, Fallen seems to be extending out and trying to do the same thing, but it's not going to be done without any pressure. Of course, Killsy's right now looking to be on the front foot there, but yeah, we see a lot of those players, the con man right there, having to rotate in, so maybe Killsy's will be looking to try and take advantage of that.
Yeah, but will they be able to take advantage? That's kind of the question we're going to see here, especially for people like CH. CH only 10 points on the board, did have a pretty decent game there in game number 4, but now game number 5 still struggling, still at the bottom of the leaderboard. So it's all about trying to make something happen here in the final moments, and you see the shots just firing all around CH. So CH decides to back up and says, you know what? It's not worth me trying to go for some shots here. It's not worth the engagement. This is just a bit of a congested area. But if they don't start moving here soon, it's going to be rough. And there it is. The pad comes out, flying through the air. CH is about to land right onto these builds, but there's a player just below. If this player wants to, they could easily end up taking this fight here, as this metal is just barely getting built. But there it is. This zone is closing. These final moments of game number 5 are afoot, and who will be the victor? That is a question we will get answered in just a few moments.
Yep, and I can't wait to see what the outcome of this game is going to be. Of course, these catty corner southern east zones, they are very, very grueling. If you don't have the materials and you're stuck down below a mountain, it's almost impossible to make yourself into that zone, get yourself into that zone, make yourself up into the leaderboards, of course, as well. But this is where we see a lot of the players trying to situate themselves up on the high ground. Of course, in the zone right now as well, you just saw on the screen, is the blue cube. Now, this is a really, really interesting mechanic of the game that's just been introduced into Season 8, because what not a lot of people know about this cube is you can actually just sort of hit yourself against it, and it actually heals you. I believe it's for 20 or 10 shield. You can see Jri right there using that very effectively. You can see him just in the left side of the screen. Now he's healed his way all the way back up to 100 shield, which is great because he can sort of overpeak for surge tags, but also, more importantly, he doesn't have to waste his heals. So, of course, this allows him to make his way into the end game, and without having to use those all-important heals, and having that in the end zone, and even in the half and half zone now, this could make it a very, very interesting mechanic and dynamic going on right now.
Yeah, in the way that this game is kind of unfolding here, it'll be kind of exciting to see, because so many players are going to try and position themselves next to the blue cube because of that heal factor, especially players that are a little bit weaker right now can layer themselves all around this cube and end up just continually healing themselves in these final moments, which is going to be very crucial as these shots begin to come out and these players begin to rotate, because you know it's very hard to rotate freely and without punishment. And with these players looking to apply that punishment, I can see quite a few players beginning to rotate and taking some damage, but fortunately for them, that blue cube has got them covered.
Yeah, it definitely does. Unlimited shield potential right there. So for players like Dash right now, who might be wanting to launch pad his way over towards that blue cube, might be taking some shots out of the air. Of course, it doesn't heal you for any white HP, but as you mentioned, as you predicted, every single person is trying to get a little slice of that blue cube right there, just trying to find a little area of which they can heal up, because now it gives them the potential, it gives them the opportunity to take some fights and take some a bit more risky engagements, because they know that they're going to be able to use that blue cube to heal themselves up, and they can sort of overpeak, as we see this player doing right now, getting a great 99 tag on the other player that's opposite them. So yeah, plenty of players opting to go towards this blue cube and utilize that heal factor of it very, very effectively, as we see not too many players opting for the low ground in this situation, of course, because with zones this mountainous, you never know what the next zone could hold.
You never do, especially considering these elevation changes. We've seen time and time again how these mountains can affect the way that players have to play the remainder of their game, and it's definitely going to play a factor here with all the builds and the congestion here, with all these players located and still up, to be honest, in this game. It's going to be a tough rotation, to say the least. But fortunately for a lot of these players, like we're seeing right here, there's launch pads and they're in the inventory, so it's just a matter of positioning themselves in a place where they can launch and try to get a little bit further onto the mountain. But looking around here, no clear winner as far as high ground goes. Everybody's still going to be clamoring for that opportunity, and now we actually see the Chili Chug Splash come out, going straight for that pad. Actually a very, very smart play on behalf of this player, now going to position themselves right on the edge. It's kind of hard to tell actually where this zone is beginning to pull, because it actually looks like it could be pulling towards Camp Cod.
I think it does. I think you're right. Of course, this is a difficult situation now for these players, as we see this player right down below. Do you opt for the lower ground area? Because it looks as though it does go sort of half on the mountain and half off. So you never know where this next zone could pull. And I think that's got to be in the back of these players' minds right now, as we're seeing Brewy establishing himself up on high ground. He does have the materials to hold it for now. We've seen players have to waste their materials a little bit too much on height and then fall victim to it. But I think it's going to be important to see where this next zone pulls. If it does pull over the mountain, then some of these players, like this player right now, are going to be having trouble. They do have the launch pad though to rotate their way out, so he can escape this fight, which he can't. It's not possible. And look, it's Vixito all the way up on high ground. Is the zone going to pull all the way up there? I think it isn't. So it looks as though the players that are up on high ground are going to have to drop down. They're going to have to lose a lot of their elevation just to make sure that they don't stay up too high, because players down below could be lurking and waiting for an opportunity to go for height.
These have been some tough zones for these players throughout all of these games. So it's exciting to see how talented they are, and it shows in the way that they handle these high pressure situations. Fortunately, though, for ConsoleBot, it does have a decent amount of material and definitely enough to make some things happen, and that's what we're going to see here as they begin to rotate in. They're looking to kind of connect with that one player that was just on the opposite side there, looking to try and make something happen, but no, Zito still on the high ground, taking shots left and right, actually does connect quite a bit there, but finds himself starting to run low on material. So this could be a bit of a stressful moment for Zito if they're going to be able to get a refresh. That's going to be something that is desperately needed here in the final moments here in Zone 8 and Zone 9, because you cannot maintain high ground with 22 builds. It just will not happen. Fortunately, though, nobody else is seeming to contest them. But as I say that, Summit just building up, trying to take it. Zito now going to try and build fight them a bit. But looking at the way this is going, neither player has a ton of material to work with. So, fortunately, Zito going to continue to maintain high ground, but Seek now going to have to disengage.
Yeah, really well held that right there from Zito. He has a history of winning. Actually came first in his semi-finals heat to get here today, so he knows how to win these sort of events. And Killsy's unfortunately right there, though, going down in the feed to GV, another player we've been looking out for all day, getting up some great eliminations right there. 2 to his name so far, but look, he hasn't got too many materials all the way down on low ground. Gets another great elimination right there. That's Goopy-son going down. A crucial refresh for GV. It's not going to yield too many materials, but what a shot from GV. Another great elimination for him. It's going to allow him to survive a little bit longer in this endgame as he tries to make his way towards the front side of zone, building his way in there, of course, as well. He has to be careful, though. There are plenty of other players contesting this low ground area as this final zone pulls all the way over towards this Camp Cod area. Fixito all the way up on high ground. Still, I believe he's holding it, and he's holding it very well, and he clutches up with another elimination. Zito is on fire. He's still on high. He has minimal builds, but he's holding it, and he's proving why he is one of the finest players that we are watching today. He's up on high. He's looking for some shots, and so is Seek, who picks up GV in the feed. Fixito drops down. It's a 1v1 situation. It's Seek against Fixito. Fixito gets a great shot off. Seek tries to get another one. 27 is not going to be enough, and Fixito has come out on top with 4 eliminations. Wow, that was impressive.
Definitely impressive performance there from Zito. 4 eliminations on the board. The victory royale, definitely what they wanted, despite having very limited material. So being able to kind of maintain and manage with such little material is tough, but it's definitely possible, and that's what we got to see there. And it's kind of funny because Seek and Zito were the final 2 players there that were trying to take high ground. Zito ended up winning it out, but Seek still managed to stay alive despite not having too much to work with.
Yeah, that was really well played from both of those guys. Of course, Zito being able to retain that high ground, but Seek getting that recovery. From when you're going up for high ground, you might want to waste a little bit too much materials than you would normally, but Seek did a really, really great job. Of course, he didn't manage to get that high ground in the end, but he wasn't too overconfident or over-complacent with the amount of materials that he had. So he retained his place in the game and managed to pick up a 2nd place. So after going for high ground, that is very, very good. Of course, we're seeing some clutch eliminations from Fixito right there, and of course, Seek clutching up on low ground right there as well, which is amazing to see. But what a performance from Fixito, who didn't really have the materials going into that latter stage of the endgame. So well done to him.
Well done indeed. But another person we got to shout out is Jivy, being consistent. So I'm excited regardless to see how this leaderboard shifts, but we're going to dive into a quick break before we get into our final game of the day. So make sure to stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Running it. Running it.
Here it is, everybody. 5 games down, 1 game remaining here in the Play Versus featuring Fortnite High School Solo Finals. I mean, look, it's down to the wire, down to the final moments to figure out who's going to come out on top. Will it be someone that's been consistent like Jivy, or will it be another player that could have a very, very breakout performance, a big breakout performance in the final game? We'll get that answered here for you shortly. But before we can, we'll dive into leaderboards here in a little bit because we need to know who more or less has solidified their spot here at the top. And once we get those numbers together, we'll be able to share that with you. But before then, we gotta talk predictions. I kind of want your final prediction with these 5 games played. Who do you think is going to be the first place, the champion of the tournament? In your opinion, in these final moments, who do you think is going to come out on top?
In my opinion, I think GV. He's had such a really great finish to these, well, not even finished, we have 1 more game to go, but a great latter stage of the tournament right here. He's had such a great performance in those games, particularly in that final game, showing how really good he is on low ground, of course, being able to clutch up eliminations, which, as we know, are so crucial, but being able to consistently get that placement as well. I think if he has a solid game here, he can definitely come out on top. So we're going to find out who's going to be on top going into game number 6. It's going to be very exciting right here, as well as we see he's curious.
Yeah, and looking at the standings, unfortunately, Jivy didn't really climb it. It actually looks like he dropped 1 position as Seek now able to, with that victory royale, able to kind of tie with him, or with that top 5 spot, I should say. So unfortunately there for Jivy, is still going to find himself falling here, but this is the game that he needs. He has 80 points. In first place is 98 points. So a victory royale here with some solid eliminations will ultimately make the difference. But we got to figure that out. It's time. Game number 6 is underway, and here it is. The final moments of the Play Versus Solo High School Tournament is underway, and I'm excited.
I cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun. We've got the final game, the ultimate moment for all these players. It is now or never for players that are wanting to come home with some cash, maybe even the higher cash prizes, of course, as well. And, of course, the pride of coming first in one of these tournaments. Of course, we're seeing a lot of players now rotating and, landing into that drop. So we're seeing Tree, who had a very, very solid start to the day, but unfortunately hasn't been able to quite replicate that in some of the previous games. We talked about him earlier, having such a great talent right there, but hasn't quite, unfortunately, been able to replicate that and keep up the same sort of momentum that he had going into the first 2 games. But we're seeing Abe right now just up at the stealthy stronghold area, being able to get some plenty of shield off, and of course getting that really great loot early on, of course, getting a rare lever shotgun as well as a purple SMG. That's a really, really solid loadout, which I think it'll give him some confidence going into these fights here.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. When you're in the early game stages here, those SMGs, those shotguns, those are going to be the go-to weapons here if you want to feel confident taking any of these fights. Fortunately for Phantom here, going to be able to slip away. This other player is going to be able to slip away, and he doesn't really have to worry about taking this engagement, but he said, no, I'm still going to take some shots at you. You make sure to stay over at the gas station side of Caddy Corner, because main is mine.
Yeah, I really like Catty Corner, actually. The ability to sort of rotate around the whole POI using those trash cans. You can rotate using the tunnels, of course, as well. You have the porta potties as well, which you can rotate towards the outskirts of the map. So the trash can that is particularly being used right here is the one that goes between the main and the gas station towards the southern side of Catty Corner. This is a really, really quick way to escape from a fight, maybe if you're on the back foot, on the shield or the loot side of things. So I think we're seeing that being used really, really well. And another reason why it's definitely one of the more preferred drop spots, especially for solos. If you can get yourself stocked up on those peppers, you definitely have a good chance of making it well in the end game. Of course, Abe right now talked about his loot earlier. Let's see if he can put that loot to good use. He has full shield, of course, as well. The material count not looking too great, but getting that SMG reloaded. He can't quite get the damage enough, though, but Springs comes out on top. I think it was an assault rifle versus an SMG right there, and it looks as though the assault rifle came out on top.
Yeah, that was definitely tough. When you have limited material, right, your best bet is to pressure with the SMG, but you can't stand still. You need to make sure that you're kind of moving there, and unfortunately, we saw it. Abe ends up going down in the final game, in the final moments, but this is huge for Springs, as Springs now going to be the aggressor here, now going up against Peachy, trying to take some shots. This is going to be huge for Springs if they can convert here on an elimination.
Yeah, that's going to be huge for Springs right now. Getting that early elimination, not only great for their points, but of course their confidence going into the final game. That's what you want. You want to be brimming with confidence going into the final game. Of course, going into this game, he was in 33rd place. So definitely not a situation or position that he would want to be in, but getting that early elimination, he's got to feel happy with how his loot's looking, of course, as well. And the stealthy stronghold area does allow for a lot of farming. Lots of materials around nearby. Of course, you do have that corrupted area as well, which we talked about before, has such a good amount of brick. As we're hopping on over to, I think, a little underrated area of the map, the sort of Viking ship areas. We see Shadow utilizing it very well, trying to be very, very sneaky against Bludge right here, who is on the opposing end. Right here, you can get a lot of brick, a lot of metal as well. A lot of these walls that Shadow is just leaning up against right now, they actually are metal. So you can almost come out of here with maximum materials. And of course, you have the usage of a lot of loot, and you have the Nomus boxes as well. So a really great drop spot. Unfortunately, Shadow not quite getting the best shotgun in his inventory, but he does have that upgraded assault rifle. It's going to be interesting to see how he can manage this fight. He's being very sneaky about it so far.
He definitely has. And unfortunately for him, that's what you need at this point. You have to make sure that you're being patient, methodical. If you don't have everything that you would need confidently to take this fight, don't take it. Wait until this player rotates away, which is what we're seeing now, and then try to rotate around. Fortunately, though, Bludge is going to completely disengage. Not worth the engagement there, but look at that. It's our boy. If you don't know, that's Tuna Fish. In this season of Fortnite, Tuna Fish has made its way into the game, one of the newer skins here in the Battle Pass, and actually one of the coolest customizable skins, in my opinion, this season. If you don't know, you can actually find paint cans around the map and use them to change the different colors of Tuna Fish. So it's a pretty cool outfit to see in this season. So, but it's time to dive into some action here with Don's World trying to take this fight here with CH just running away. Don's World trying to make a comeback here, is going to need all the eliminations that he can get here to make something happen. And no, another launch pad has been picked up here by CH probably going to look to go out the back and use that launch pad, and there it is. CH still climbing, clambering away from this fight, and there he goes. Don's World actually going to decide not to take the fight. Definitely an interesting decision, but decides to go straight for this chest and go for the harpoon.
Yeah, definitely a really interesting decision indeed. Of course, hasn't quite had the best tournament so far, has Dawns. Of course, with his experience, I'm sure he would be wanting to do better. This player right here, of course, qualified to week 2 of the semi-finals in FNCS, so last season. So a very, very experienced player at this level. He knows how to perform, so maybe there's a decision right there that he might have rehearsed. If someone has padded away, you never quite know where they could be lurking. So maybe a little bit more of a calm and collected play from Dawns right now, as we're seeing another calm and collected play right here for Trapper, who does appear to be on the back foot, trying to make his way towards this other player that does seem to be trying to utilize all of his builds as he can. It's Shep right here on the opposing end. A great shot from both of them to pick up a damage on both of the players right now. Only sat on 7 points is Shep right now, so he's definitely going to be wanting to try and work his way up the leaderboards, and this elimination will help him greatly. He has got more materials, though, of course, than Trapper right now, so I don't think he would know that at this stage, but he is sort of having to use those materials a lot. And look, there's another third party. The danger of fighting this early on below a mountain is that there's players nearby, but Shep trying to close out this elimination, which he does oh so well. A really great clutch up right there. Some great elimination, some great AR shots to pick up that elimination, but no, there is another player nearby. It's Slab just up on top. He's got to be careful of that third party.
Yeah, and listen, if you're up on the hill, you're not going to take this engagement. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But no, as I say that, you see the player immediately dropping down. It looks like flying over to take advantage of any of the loot that was left behind here by Shep. Shep now finds himself on the island, this little bat cave area that just came to the game recently. And so it could be a bit of a disengage here, but there could still be a fight over there. Now, though, the focus is on City. City winning the last game, looking to make a huge comeback, make a staple performance here in the final game, but now is pushed by strikes in zone. So this is a tough fight to take, but fortunately it's happening in Steamy Stacks, which means they can rotate away freely, but it's just got to end quickly.
Yeah, it really does. So CD right here going into this game in ninth, but unfortunately he will not be able to climb any higher than that as Strikes does strike with the blue pump shotgun. A fantastic shot, a great connection, and now we've seen him do it before, rotating out of Steamy stacks, using those stacks, the flying ability that they can offer, of course, getting that early elimination. He has the 2 medkits in his inventory as well, so a really great elimination from him right there. Striker getting another one, as we've seen him do so often. He seems to be dominating that Steamy stacks area, so definitely a very unfortunate moment for CD right there, who doesn't quite manage to end on a very good note, unfortunately for him. We're seeing Hydra right now. They're trying to get as much piece control as he can. It looks as though there's another player coming in the car. Oh, hello. There's a player coming in and getting involved. Blaze is saying, okay, I see a fight brewing right here. I'm going to get my car and myself involved in this one.
That was actually kind of an awesome play here. I think that was on Blades. Blades was the one that got involved here, and definitely an interesting play to say the least. But for Hydratix, you definitely want to get in that. You're going to want to get out of there. 28 builds remaining, not so much to work with. But as I say that, instantly takes the wall here from Blades. Now trying to take the fight. Blades does have a nice shot, but no, 161 to the head. And oh my gosh, as I thought it was over for Blades, Blades cleans up Hydratix and takes that elimination.
Wow, Blaze right there. He was on the receiving end of a max damage green pump headshot. That would have definitely sent him on the back foot, but no, he connected with his shots, which Hydra did not. So that was definitely the battle of the aim right there, and it looks as though he came out on top. We're seeing Springs right now, who already has an elimination, who also has that green pump shotgun, does of course have the usage of that upgraded SMG as well, and of course has the upper hand on the HP side of things. So this is a very important fight for Springs. He doesn't want to get eliminated here. There does seem to be another player that is lurking nearby. Might get beamed by them in just a moment, because I'm not sure he's aware of that other player. It's Lando, I believe, on the other end of this fight. So he's got to be very, very patient, which we've seen him do so often. But what we can see him do is connect with a great pump headshot and follows it up with some great SMG shots as well. Now there's another third party to deal with. Lando going down to Springs. Springs now on the back foot. It's RBZ, I believe. Yeah, another player right here that has been performing pretty well today. Wants to finish on a strong note, of course. Great 36 shot from Springs, who does seem to just be controlling these fights so well. He's very, very good at taking the walls, making it, I think he's very good at making it very, very patient, making and sort of turning the fight in his favor. Then as soon as he sees an opportunity to pounce, he's there and he is on it with great aim, great precision, and a great shot right there to close out these fights.
I'm going to break down exactly what he's doing. Ready? Angles. And it's so important. It's something that we're seeing utilized more and more in Fortnite. And if you're not using it, you're falling behind, because controlling a fight in a way that you put yourself in less harm's way. That's the best way for me to put it. Is when you want to take an engagement and you want to fight somebody, whether it's a box fight, a build fight, etc. The best way to take that fight is to take it with certain angles that limit the amount of that your body or your player actually is exposed. The limit the amount of opportunities for the other player to connect with you. So fortunately for them, they understand how to use those angles and they use them pretty effectively, but it really comes down to practicing that. If you're not utilizing angles, you need to start picking it up. But for people like Palsty, we know they know how to rock those angles. That's why they've been making it to the end game so much.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That's so well broken down right there. Angles are so important when taking these fights, particularly in the mid game, especially when there's so many third parties as well. You really don't want to be exposing yourself too much to the opposing player that you're fighting, but also, of course, to the plenty of other players that could be lurking, as we're seeing Hollow right now, unfortunately falling victim to the lack of white HP. Does, of course, have that legendary charged shotgun in his inventory, a very good power weapon. We talked about it earlier, about the sort of scare factor that can offer, of course, getting inside of your own box and using that to charge your way up. It's definitely going to scare away an opponent. Blar, of course, not too scared by it, but he's got to be scared by his material count right now. There are only 14 builds to his name, now back down on low ground, and that charge up on high ground can do some very, very good damage. 100 plus to the body from definitely a few building pieces away, but no, this is bad. The storm is coming in. This is a very, very bad situation right now. Blar is definitely on the upper hand. Hollow, unfortunately, might go down. Yes, he does. I thought he might go down to the storm. He sort of had to make that play, but Blar makes it his own. He picks up that elimination, and that was very unfortunate right there for Hollow. But but he made it. He did a good. He had a good effort. He made his way, but he made his way back to the lobby, unfortunately, and it was a good elimination from Blah.
It was a really solid elimination and definitely played out extremely well. But looks like because they're in zone, another player trying to creep up from behind here, and it's actually Springs looking to get some tags there. It does actually connect a little bit with Blair, but it's all over. Blair now back in the lobby. Springs able to pick up that elimination, but there's still another player here on the edge of zone. It's actually Zito, one of our great players there in the final moments of the last game, going to hold Springs accountable. And that's what you want to see. These players that are playing out in zone for as long as they are, they have to be super careful. They cannot afford to spend too much time in Storm. And fortunately for Springs, neither of the players that are close by are focusing them. So now, of course, as I say that, ARBZ now getting involved, taking some shots there towards the player, but not able to connect anything.
Yeah, that's always the danger of taking those storm fights. Of course, you do have to be careful of those looming players that are already situated in the storm, especially if they see you fighting in the storm. It's definitely not a situation that you want to be involved in because there could be 1, 2, maybe 3 players that are all looking at you as you're rotating on out and into the safe zone. So not only do you have the storm to contend with, you also have plenty of players around you as well. We're seeing Shep falling victim to that right now. It seems there's plenty of players around him that could be about to focus. They're in zone, though, so maybe this fight could be drawn out a little bit longer than you would typically expect. But Gritz looking to be very, very good on the loot side of things. Maybe he's looking to pick up a little bit of Storm Surge tags if he does need them. No eliminations to his name quite yet, but of course he does have the loot to do some good damage, both in close range and in long range. He's going to try and get as many walls as possible, but that unfortunately leads to him getting down in HP. It looks as though Shep right now tries to get on the front foot. Gritz right there getting that big edit. Maybe that sort of played in his disadvantage because it left himself very exposed. You talked about it earlier, Panda, the angles. Maybe he left himself a little bit too exposed there.
He definitely did, and you see Shep actually waiting for Grits to do something to that wall. Has the edit ready to go, and as soon as Grits makes a play, you're going to see that wall edited. But it looks like Grits is just going to be patient, deciding no longer to try and take this fight. The exchange and damage there has warded off, so to speak, this player. So Shep now a little bit more comfortable here in these final moments. But we haven't seen as much success here for Shep in these games as we would have liked. And with this being the final match of the day, it's going to be tough for him to make it back here in the game. But it looks like Grits is now just throwing water balloons. Says, you know what? I shot some shots. You shot some shots. Let's just throw some water balloons around.
Yeah, maybe that's a little bit less of a deadly way of fighting in this particular instance. Maybe a nice little water balloon fight could go down quite nice. We're seeing Shadow right there going down in the feed as well. We're seeing another one of these zones, though, where we're seeing the blue cube in play. It's another one of these southeast zones. We see it so often, as I mentioned earlier, very, very mountainous zones. This is where players have got to be very, very careful. The material management aspect of the game is going to be so crucial, and especially having a launch pad, as we see in Springs' inventory right now, it really could play into his advantage. So he is outside the zone. He's got to be very, very, very careful of plenty of players nearby. But look, plenty of players that are situated up on the mountain as well. There's 2 mountains that are in play in this current zone. So which way is the zone going to pull? Which way is this final game going to go? And who's going to come out on top?
Who's going to come out on top? Well, when you got players like Zito, Jivy, Springs, Cloudsy, I mean, the list goes on. So many talented names here in the final moments of the final game. It all comes down to the right plays. Not being too aggressive, making sure you don't overextend, and ultimately trying to play for that high ground later on, especially looking at the way this zone is pulling, because yet again, we find ourselves getting a final moving zone in a point where there's lots of elevation changes. So this is going to be another tough moving zone here for these players. But from what we've seen so far, they know how to handle it.
Yeah, they really do. I think this definitely has an impact as well. Of course, they've had this experience before. They've been involved in this zone before, so maybe that plays a part in this zone. They've almost practiced this before. They've had a little bit of experience in today's format with the exact same, almost the exact same players in the zone. So maybe that could definitely play in some of these players' advantage if they didn't have quite the success that they would have wanted in the previous time that the zone was all the way down here. So we saw players like GV dominating on low ground. We saw players that are dominating on high ground as well. It was Fixito who was doing very well at that. So maybe those players are going to be going into this zone a little bit more confident because they're thinking, yeah, you know what? I've had some success in this zone before, so maybe I can replicate that.
Maybe they can replicate it indeed, and I think that's what they're going for. This is a very, very similar zone to what we just saw in match number 5 here, with the way that this is kind of positioned. Fortunately, though, for some of these players, they identify that the elevated points are going to be the most ideal here, and here it is. Actually, the zone pools to where only one player finds themselves, so this is going to be tough, but not tough here for Peachy, as Peachy tries to get some tags off, has the heals to heal up there, and but they find themselves only 22 damage above the damage threshold here for Storm Surge. So they are going to need more tags if they want to continue to survive in this game and make something happen. Peachy already looking for any kind of tags that they can get. Not seeing anything really, but fortunately for them, Storm Surge no longer active here in the final game. But Crunch TP still trying to survive, still trying to make something happen, and now bouncing right off the blue cube here for a little bit before they have to rotate.
Yeah, really, really difficult rotate right here. You see a lot of the zone being situated up on the mountain, but it could also catch a lot of people out that are situating below the mountain as well. Of course, if the zone does pull anywhere towards the northeast, north, or even just the south side of the zone right here, it could definitely spell danger for a lot of the players that are down below. Crunch right now playing the back of zone, a very risky strategy. He does have, of course, those 5 chug splashes to use if he does want to. Of course, that's definitely something that he'll want to try and keep. And these reusable launch pads, this is so crucial. Recycling all of those is going to be so crucial. And Curix right now, yep, finding himself all the way down below. So he's sort of gambling at this stage unless he does go up. No, he's going to situate himself down here. I think, no, he does go up. As I say that, he's going all the way up. He understands how important elevation is in these zones, because you never know. There's the next moving zone, the first moving zone could be pulling in any direction. You got to set yourself up to be in the best position for any outcome here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, but unfortunately this lobby's not going to agree with Curix being in position where he's at, because these players are just beginning to focus him. And it's kind of interesting because it's not like there was any kind of significant shots taken onto Curix that would identify him as weak or running out of material. You see him consistently building with hard material there, so it's not going to be easy to break through. And now Curix regains that wall, so there's not much Berserk can do on the other end there. So it's kind of a bit of an interesting decision to try and take that fight, but ultimately Curix is going to be safe. Does take a little bit of HP deficit there, but still enough HP to work with. But as I say that, somebody beams him there from a distance, losing quite a bit of shield. So he needs to be careful if he wants to continue to survive.
Yeah, he has to be very, very careful indeed. Of course, there are so many players that are situated up on high ground. A lot of these players that will be padding right now, launch padding their way to the other side of the bridge. You really cannot be caught under the bridge right now. Looks like Clouded gets absolutely beaten on the backside of zone right now, so Springs might come in and clear that up, as Springs does utilize that launch pad, which is absolutely essential for getting your way inside of the zone. His material count is not looking too great right now. Not too bad. I'm sure he'll be able to clutch his way through at least this first moving zone, but not without some pressure from any other players. As we see Curix right now picking up an elimination on his way to zone. It was Pope that right there going down in the feed, finding some time to pop some minis as well, getting his HP up to as much as he can, but that's a crucial elimination for him. Allows him to get that refresh, but crucially he's staying all the way up on high ground. He wants to stay as elevated as possible because you never know which way this zone could pull, and it pulls all the way back down. They're up, down, topsy-turvy. All the players are having to go left, right, center, but more importantly, they're going to have to go from all the way up to all the way down.
All the way up to all the way down. Definitely a good way to put it, because it is quite that. It's quite the opposite of what they've been experiencing now, having to drop here quite a bit. Fortunately, there's a lot of builds to recycle that they're going through, and that's what they're going to utilize. You see Curix just pressuring here on the other side of the wall. Only 5 builds remaining in the inventory, so not much to work with. Just enough to protect him from a couple shots coming through there. But looking at the inventory, no shields, no heals, 3 builds. So this is going to be a tough zone here for Curix. It actually opts to use the launch pad there, but definitely risky, as we can see Curix taking a lot of damage. Again, very, very limited builds left, so for them to take the pad there is risky to say the least. But no, as I say that, it gets a nice little refresh. It's not a ton of material to work with, but it is still some material. Now though, gets actually tagged up there by another player. That player stops actually pressuring him, so kind of lucky there for Curex. Curex is still going to be able to handle or hang out here and figure out what's going on with the remainder of this game. But now it is all down to this, the final moments of this game. Curex being one of those top contenders here within the top spot could potentially walk away with one of those top 3 positions, but it all comes down to the final performance.
Yeah, it would be an absolute miracle if he could come away with a victory around here. Of course, he is on the low ground. He is going to try and look for some refreshes. He needs it. That's it. That's his final 2 builds. That is all he has got left in the tank. So he's going to have to try and find somebody else to try and eliminate, as GB has done so well in the past. He's dropped all the way to low ground. We know he's comfortable here, but he's not going to be comfortable because he's been eliminated. Back to the lobby for him. It's Curex picking up that elimination, quite possibly an important refresh as well. And there goes Curex to Sin. And Sin goes down to Strikes. Strikes taking out so many players right there. Right down the way on low ground. Draws, of course, as well, picking up another elimination on Springs. It's all out war on low ground.
It's all out war. These players are just fighting for that, clamoring for that final spot. EXO actually being one of them that had the potential to make something happen. Fell pretty early there in match number 5. Now still alive here in match number 6. Big Boy Clouded actually gliding in from above, potentially using that shadow flopper or that Q flopper play. So kind of interesting to see how they'll be able to survive. Somebody actually challenging EXO for the high ground there. EXO drops no. EXO ends up going down there to the fall damage. Big Boy Cloud identifies that there's still another player in the sky there floating, tries to take some shots onto that player, now gets to connect. 25 damage there. Not too much to work with otherwise, and now it's all about rotating, utilizing those final moments, the final materials that he has in the inventory to try and make something happen here in this game. This could be a huge turnaround game for him. A top 10 performance is not out of the picture depending on how he handles these next few seconds.
Yeah, Bravo right here going down all the way to low ground. He picks up an elimination on Clouded. Now it's a 1v1 situation. It's high ground. It was the player that went all the way up using that shadow flopper. It is the Twitch Van Hoos player right now, all the way up on high ground. Bravo hasn't got the white heals to out heal. I don't think he's going to be able to. It looks as though Van Hoos does have the white heals, and Bravo goes down to the storm. Van Hoos up on high ground using the shadow flopper play, which we've talked about so much. He clutches up the victory royale and manages to get himself a few eliminations as well along the way. What a win in game number 6.
Actually there, Mini Miner, Van Hoos had 0 eliminations to end out that game. So kind of a different performance than what you see from the game winner, right? But nonetheless, 0 eliminations is not going to score you a lot to work with. So hopefully Van Hoos was able to be consistent in some of these other games and climb the leaderboard appropriately. But it's tough. Like we've talked about several times here today, it's all about the balancing act. Getting those eliminations, getting the victory royale, getting the placement, and doing what you can to come out on top in this leaderboard. But it's tough. It is a very, very close game, and it's hard to tell who's going to be the victory royale or the #1 victor, I should say, in all of this tournament.
Yeah, that was very impressive. I thought he had an elimination, but no, it looks as though the final player did go down to the storm. So yeah, it was a 0 elimination victory royale from Van Hoos in game number 6. That was so impressive. Using that strategy, we talked about it before, combining the launch pad with the shadow flopper. He did that so well. All out war on low ground, some great eliminations from Bravo, Springs, and of course Curtix. I mean, that was unbelievable. Some great action, high ground, low ground. It was all going on.
It was all going on, but we got to talk about what's going on right now because you're hanging out here at the Play Versus channel. We're taking care of you here with the high school solo finals event. But if you don't know, there's more of this. Tomorrow, we got the college trios event going on. Make sure to tune in with us tomorrow, same time, right here. It'll be Mini Miner and myself, Life with Panda, breaking it all down. But before we can get you this leaderboard, we got to talk about it. And we got to shout out Play Versus because thank you so much for putting this on. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to showcase these players in a very special way because we had a lot of great players do a lot of great things. What, for you, Mini Miner, what was a highlight moment here in the Play Versus solo high school event?
I mean, there was so many highlight moments to pick out from. We had some insane high ground plays. We had some not so insane high ground plays where people were getting eliminated to full damage. Maybe the con man might have been fallen victim to that. But we had some not so good plays. But also we had some very good plays, of course, as well. I'm going to say Van Hoos, that end game play, it was so unsuspecting all the way up there. He was just watching all the action unfold down below. 0 eliminations. And he thought, you know what, I'm going to drop in here. And he played it so effectively. I think he could do that because he saved those materials and those white heals going into that end game. A really, really solid strategy going into that because there was a lot of hills, a lot of zones that were sort of going over hills and under hills and going under bridges. It was unbelievable. So it was a really, really great play from him because it allowed him to stay out of that. So what about you, Panda? What's your favorite moment today?
I mean, there's so many, right? We saw the game 4 performance from Jivy where they got quite a few eliminations there in the final moments. We saw the great high ground plays, the great low ground plays. Ultimately, though, I got to talk about it. That 0 elim victory royale is kind of impressive, right? It kind of gives you those vibes of like Bizzle back in the World Cup days, going for the qual without using a weapon, right? But without further ado, we talked about World Cup, we talked about everything. It's time to give you the leaderboard, the final standings to define who's walking away with the cash. And it is on top here, Curex actually able to climb up in the final moments to take that top spot with 115 points.
Wow, what a performance from Curex right there. That is such a great performance from him because we almost counted him out right on low ground in those mountainous zones right there. But what he managed to do was pick up some eliminations. He had elimination after elimination. He put himself into some great positions as well. So getting that low ground play was definitely an unfavorable position for him, but he made the most of it. He had a really good average placement and he picks up some really good eliminations a lot across the board as well. But most crucially today, he had that balance, particularly in that final 4 games. I don't think he had an outside of the top 12 placements. So really well done from him. Of course, plenty of other players to talk to as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, so many talented players stepping up to the plate and making things happen. We got to shout out everybody involved. And remember, 50 people walk away with some cash. So not only do the top 10 have some money involved, no, if you made it through the top 50, you did well. You get to walk away with a little something here from Play Versus. So huge performance here from these players, even players like Berserk and Peachy, down to those final moments in some of those games, being aggressive and connecting with the engagements that they desperately needed to put those points up, but unfortunately just finding themselves fall here because this was a close race throughout a majority of the competition. So congratulations again to all these players here that are able to walk away with some of that cash despite maybe not having the best performance that they were hoping for.
Yeah, some of the players not having their best performance, but of course there are plenty more opportunities to come in the future, I'm sure, with not only Play Versus, but of course other competitions coming up in the season as well. So a really great job from all these players today. Once again, if you didn't quite manage to make it into that top 50 or indeed that top 10, then it's all about keeping on grinding, keeping on going and working as hard as you can, because that's what it's about, keeping up that grind, keeping up that consistency, as we saw Curex do so well today.
Absolutely. And that's going to be it for us today. Again, make sure to tune in same time tomorrow for the Trios College event with myself, Life with Panda, and Mini Miner breaking that down for you. So make sure, get there, be a part. And until next time, we'll see you all on the battle bus. Take it easy, everyone.
Set me free or give me death, yeah. Living good, I've been blessed, yeah. Shout out all my enemies, all the best. You can set me free or give me death, man, I'm on my way, yeah. You can find out, you on timeout. You been dealing with the devil, where you sign at? Yeah, oh Lord, you getting financed. Me, I'm talking ownership, baby, that's where my mind at. Try that, yeah, me, I threw my money down. And you know that it's good, we can skip the run around. And I don't need no yes, man, I'm all the way down. Yo, and I am not for sale, that's in case you couldn't tell, but y'all know better now. You can set me free or give me death, yeah. Living good, I've been blessed, yeah. Shout out all my enemies, all the best. You can set me free or give me death, man, I'm on my way, yeah. I'm on my way, yeah. Man, I'm on my way, yeah. And I can do this all day.